All right, I will call our work session to order. Thank you all for being here, and we begin today with a presentation from the Latinx Pack. Hello, thanks for joining us.
I want to take this time to introduce to you our Latinx Pack group. And one thing that I have in my privilege is I have the choice to be vulnerable and speak a second language that I don't feel very comfortable in doing, but I know it is important that we value language. So I'm going to deliver the opening in Spanish, and then I'll speak it in English afterwards. But it's a privilege that I have as a monolingual native language person who has gone to school and spoke English my entire life, that I have a choice. And our students come to us all the time with different languages that they center themselves in. And so I'm going to take a risk and be vulnerable. And for those of you that are bilingual, please give me grace. Okay. Tengo el gusto presentarles a los representantes del PAC Latino esta noche. Ellos han preparado una breve presentación para la mesa directiva sobre el trabajo que han hecho este año y sobre las metas que han propuesto para seguirán. Adelante. ¿Estarán listos para contestar preguntas después de la presentación? I have the pleasure of introducing representatives from the Latinx Pack tonight, the Latino Pack tonight. They have prepared a brief presentation for the board regarding the work they've done this year and the goals they have set to move their work forward. They are ready to answer questions after their presentation. And I'd also like to introduce Executive Director Olga Cunha, who works very closely with our family engagement. I'm sweating.
Nice job. It is a pleasure to be here tonight. My name is Olga Cunha. Those of you that don't know me. And I am here really to just provide moral support, as you can tell. I would love to start with by having our representatives introduce themselves. They each have a story, and if they can say their name and where the children go to school, that would be great. And then they will begin the presentation. And then at the end, Nabea would introduce herself as well. So we will start with, who's at the end? Dora? Dora, go ahead.
My name is Dorotea Lopez. I'm supporting the Latino Parent Advisory Committee. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Dorotea López y yo estoy apoyando al Comité Consultivo de Padres.
My name is Monica Oliver, and I'm a member of the PAC committee. I have two children. One is in high school, Hill High, and my other one is in preparation, 6th grade.
My name is Isabel Oliva Jensen. I am a 9th grader at Hill High, and I am part of the Student Representative Pack.
Hello, my name is Jorge Martinez. Thank you for having us today to present. I have a son, his name is Alan, and he's attending the bilingual program at Reedville, and I'm a brand new member into the PAC committee, so thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Arabella, and I'm the new language liaison for the Hillsboro School District. Very good. Thank you. And we will start with Monica. Thank you.
So I'm going to speak Spanish. Okay. Esta es una presentación en base a nuestro involucramiento de este año escolar.
This is a presentation based on our engagement this school year.
El propósito del Comité Consultivo de Padres es conseguir que los padres se involucren y participen en las escuelas. También hacemos recomendaciones con respecto a políticas y procedimientos, propuestas y proyectos.
The purpose of the Parent Advisory Committee is to help parents get involved in schools. We also make recommendations regarding policies, procedures, proposals, and projects.
Algunos de los logros de este comité son la creación del Comité Estudiantil del PAC. Los estudiantes están participando en sus escuelas e informando al comité las necesidades que existen en la comunidad estudiantil. Logramos crear un programa de tutoría para estudiantes del programa dual y también seguimos dando talleres y clases a los padres.
Some of the achievements of this committee are the addition of student representatives in PAC. The students are participating in their schools and informing the committee about the needs that exist in the student community. Also, we managed to create a tutoring program for students in dual language program. And lastly, we continue to provide workshops and classes to parents.
Thank you. Gracias.
Muy buenas tardes. Yo compartiré con ustedes lo más destacado del involucramiento familiar.
Good afternoon. My name is Jorge, and I'm the new member of the District Parent Advisory, and I will share with you the highlights of family engagement.
En esta diapositiva tenemos estadísticas que representan el involucramiento familiar de este año. Los números en las columnas representan familias que fueron asistidas durante el año. A pesar de algunas barreras como lo fue la pandemia y otras situaciones que tuvimos que afrontar para poder proveer acomodaciones a las familias. Como ustedes pueden ver en la diapositiva, el apoyo académico en la barra azul y el reclutamiento de involucramiento de padres en la barra roja fueron de las áreas más productivas como parte de los servicios proporcionados.
On this slide, we have statistics that represent this year's family engagement. The numbers in the columns represent families that were served during the year, despite some obstacles such as the pandemic and other situations that we had to face in order to provide accommodations to families. As you can see, the academic support, the blue bar, and the parent engagement recruitment, the red bar, were among the most productive areas as part of the services provided.
Los números en esta gráfica representan familias y servicios. La barra azul representa familias y la barra roja representa servicios otorgados a estas familias. A pesar de las circunstancias del año y de las medidas de seguridad, algunas escuelas pudieron proveer servicios increíbles, como ustedes pueden ver. Los números bajos en algunas escuelas serán explicados en las siguientes diapositivas. Cabe mencionar el gran trabajo del distrito en términos generales, como ustedes pueden ver en la estadística.
The numbers in this graph represent families and services. The blue bars represent families and the red bars represent services provided to these families. Despite the circumstances of the year and security measures, some schools were able to provide amazing services, as you can see. The low numbers at some schools will be explained on the next slide. In general terms, it is worth mentioning the great work that the district is doing, as you can see in the statistics.
Por falta de estabilidad en las escuelas debido a falta de personal, pandemia y otros, algunas de estas escuelas no pudieron tener eventos al igual que otras. Por esa razón, el distrito se movilizó y actuó para poder apoyar la falta de eventos y tomar iniciativa en la participación de padres en algunas escuelas. El impacto del PAC del distrito ha podido alcanzar más padres en nuestra comunidad y, por supuesto, a más familias. Y eso se vio reflejado en las juntas virtuales con los padres del distrito.
Due to the lack of stability in the schools and staff, and because of the pandemic and other factors, some of these schools were not able to host events. For that reason, the district mobilized and acted in order to support the lack of events and take initiative in the participation of parents in some schools. The impact of the district's PAC has been able to reach more parents in our community and of course more families, and that was reflected in the district's parent virtual meetings.
Algunas de las áreas más importantes y destacadas del equipo de involucramiento familiar son la preparación para la universidad de nuestros estudiantes, destacando sesiones para FAFSA, admisiones y becas para nuestros alumnos. El liderazgo otorgado y el compromiso de trabajadores en todas las escuelas se reflejó no solo en las actividades, sino que se pudo proveer la misma información en diferentes eventos virtuales del PAC del distrito, dando más posibilidad a nuestros estudiantes y familias a obtener información importante.
Some of the most important and outstanding areas of the family engagement team are student college readiness, FAFSA session, admissions, and scholarship for our students. The leadership provided, as well as the commitment of school staff, was reflected not only on the activities, but also on the fact that the same information could be provided on the district's virtual events. giving our students and families more opportunity to access this important information.
En esta diapositiva, ustedes verán el nombre de algunas organizaciones que están colaborando continuamente con diferentes escuelas. Pero existen muchísimas más creando apoyo e impacto en nuestra comunidad continuamente. Gracias al trabajo del personal de las diferentes escuelas y el distrito en general, se ha podido mantener e incrementar la colaboración con diferentes organizaciones en el distrito.
On this slide, you will see the name of some organizations that are continuously collaborating with different schools, but there are many others supporting and impacting our community. Thanks to the work of the staff in the different schools and the district in general, we have been able to maintain and increase collaboration with different organizations.
Hola, mi nombre es Isabel y soy estudiante de la preparatoria Hillsboro. Como parte del equipo de representantes estudiantiles, hemos trabajado arduamente y estos son algunos ejemplos de nuestros trabajos. Hicimos la feria universitaria y profesional y la presentación en las reuniones de los padres.
Hello, my name is Isabel, and I'm a student at Hillsboro High School. As a part of the student representative team, we have worked very hard, and these are some of the examples of our work: the college and career fair, and the presentation at parent meetings.
El Comité Consultivo de Padres recomienda que haya más consistencia para el involucramiento familiar en todos los grupos escolares, que se amplíe el apoyo para todas las familias sin importar el ingreso, mayor colaboración con la mesa directiva y que se pueda efectuar reuniones con los directores de las escuelas 3 veces por año.
The Parent Advisory Committee recommends more consistency for family engagement across all feeder groups, expand support for all families regardless of income, and greater collaboration with the board of directors, and lastly, meetings with the school's principal 3 times per year.
¿Hay alguna pregunta?
Do you have any question?
I do. Thank you very much. Someone mentioned more interaction with this board. Can you tell me more what that looks like?
I believe what we want is that we can have more communication between the parents and the board. I think we have a great support with Olga. She gives us a lot of support as the parents, the Latino parents. But I think that we need to participate more with the board, like at least have, for example, we are asking to have at least 3 times a year, have a meeting with the principals. Because some schools, the principals and the Latino parents, they're not connected, there's no link. However, there's some school, and I'm mentioning Maple Bridge because that's where my son goes. That principal is amazing, and she does have a lot of interaction with the Latino families. And not just the Latino families, all the families. So we want to be more acknowledged as a parents, because there are situations in some schools that there's not interaction with the parents, and the parents feel left out. They don't feel that they are being heard, nobody hear them. So I think there is a point that we need to bring the board or the administrator come to the table and negotiate. You know what I mean?
I do. I further then want to ask, have you thought about, excuse me, being more present at the meetings where you do have a voice, every board member? If you chose to speak at every board meeting, you could do that. That is your choice. And if there is a problem that is coming up that you feel the board needs to be aware of, that is a direct, open place for you to be able to do that at any time.
if there is additional interaction that is needed, how do people, do they just send us emails or how do they do it?
Yeah, I guess, buenas tardes. Me acuerdo que antes, I'll translate after. Me acuerdo que antes que pasara lo de la pandemia, estábamos como empezando a tener un poquito de más colaboración con la mesa directiva y con el PAC, donde podíamos ir como a las charlas en español que organizaba Mike, para que pudiéramos estar nosotros presentes y hasta como que nos sentábamos en diferentes mesas para cambiar y a platicar con diferentes padres. Obvio, por lo de la pandemia, muchas de las actividades se detuvieron, pero creo que esa era una forma más, más casual y un poquito menos, ¿cómo se dice? Formal, de poder tener una conversación con los diferentes padres. Y creo que ese comentario de tener comunicación con el director de las escuelas, creo que eso ya lo habíamos escuchado antes, que depende del director. A veces hay una buena relación con los miembros del PAC, pero cambia de cada escuela. Entonces, ¿cómo podemos hacerle para que haya que sea intencional esa relación y que crezca, que no importe cuál escuela sea, sino que eso sea parte de su responsabilidad de tener esa conexión con el PAC? So what I was saying, that before the pandemic hit, we were actually doing a greater effort of being intentional about building relationship with the PACs and meeting them in the spaces that they feel comfortable in, not asking to, come to our board meetings, but actually going to them when they were meeting and even rotating around tables so that they can have a chance to talk to different directors. Obviously, with the pandemic, everything kind of stopped, but we were starting, and I would like to see that happen again. I think for us to come back to those, I think we did it during like coffee chats, Spanish coffee chats. But if there's a way of us kind of coming back to that and building that relationship, and I think the comment that they said before about how it depends, it basically depends on the leadership of that school if they have a good relationship with the PAC. So how can we make it so that that's just part of their administration responsibility to have 3 meetings a year with the PAC, or to have these intentional conversations with them, so that it doesn't vary so much from school to school, but that's part of their responsibility. So I don't know if that's something that.
If I may interrupt, Director Lopez, and that was an amazing summary of what I have experienced, because I've been here that long. And I also have heard parents in meetings talk about those times when they would come together with the board, and there were a couple of work sessions where you guys worked together with the PAC and set some goals around how are we going to be intentional in our partnership to ensure that we as parent leaders are supporting our family engagement at the district level, because that was one of the jobs, is to empower each other and empower our parents. So that was amazing. And so what Monica is saying is establishing a partnership outside of the formal type of meeting spaces like right now. And you described it beautifully.
Perdón, teniendo un hijo en el distrito, being able to have my son attending Reedville School, I believe it's very important for us to be exposed to you in a higher capacity. Because in the meetings and the district meetings, we have 70 to 90 families joining with questions, with complaints, and with successes. And I don't know if you guys are hearing all that information in each of your meetings. Sometimes we have great news about changes happening in the district. And we would like to know a little bit more before those great news. With the pandemic, some of the families received some surveys. Personally, I received one that didn't make any sense in Spanish. Could it be nice for us to be exposed to you guys or to whoever is doing that kind of decision? So when those kind of news are presented to the family, they have a bigger chance to answer and to give feedback to you guys to make the appropriate changes that are going to be impacting the community. I'm seeing inconsistencies in the schools where directors are great, being flexible and open, but I've seen other ones that are very busy with all these situations, and I'm not blaming anybody. It's part of the pandemic and part of the change. But how can we collaborate with you in a bigger capacity to really create changes that are going to be impacting the whole community? without a question, we're seeing schools being more active and seeing a full reflection in the families, having children with the families attending the meetings. And we're seeing other schools with no participation of the parents. And we're seeing that impact in our communities. I'm seeing that in my community. So that was kind of the question, can we be more exposed to you guys and give proper feedback of the things that we're hearing in the meetings that we are collaborating with the parents?
Thank you for that. That helps me understand where we're trying to go. I guess the question is, can we get back to that?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we just haven't been able to do that the last 2 years because we haven't been able to meet in person. But I think Erica described it well. We used to have an environment where 2 or 3 times a year we would have the kind of meetings that you're talking about, and the table rotations where we would talk about challenges that families were facing, what's going well, what needs to change, those types of things. And we will definitely get back to that next year as we're able to meet in person again. Yeah, I think that was valuable for, I think that's where I first met Erica years ago, was at one of those sessions actually. And then she just never left. So, she's good care of us. And so those have been super valuable. And I think anyone that's participated in them found them to be great discussions where we learned a lot about how the community was feeling about certain topics. So we are anxious and excited to get back to that.
That's one of the soft minutes, right? It's the last one we did in person, the soft minutes.
Yeah, and I wonder also, like, I'm just thinking about like the surveys or what makes sense if we could work, that the district could work with the PAC to actually have them look at the survey and see if it makes sense or have them help us craft the questions. So si el PAC puede ayudarnos a construir esas encuestas que mandamos para ver si las preguntas son las preguntas que debemos estar preguntando o si hay otras cosas que deberíamos estar incluyendo.
Yeah, we're trying to be the bridge between the families and you guys, so whatever we can do to help. Sorry, hopefully I'm not putting anybody into the spot, but I guess that's part of my understanding of being part of the PAC. So, yeah, thank you.
Question.
Any other questions?
Oh, Monique?
Hello. Thank you all for coming, for the Latin Pack coming and presenting to us. I just have a couple of questions about the slides and wondering if you could tell me what kind of things fell under the parent participation and the services that were provided.
On parent participation, we have the parents came to our meetings. Well, first we have the main pack, and from there we have branches, and we call them little pack. Little packs are representatives of some schools, like Winter Ridge has a pack, Hill High has a pack, Evergreen has a pack. A lot of the middle schools have packs, and the little packs, they got together with the principal and the community on that school, and they create events. For example, Winter Ridge has the reading with the parents, which that means the principal and the pack, they get together and they're teaching the parents not how to read, they're teaching the parents how to read to your kid and understand the way that the kids are taught in school. So they teach us the way that the kids are taught, so we can understand how the kids are thinking. So when we read to our kids, we can exercise the same way that the kids are doing at school. So that's one of the things that the little packs do. Hill High, they have events for families where they created a Latino night. Every month they have a Latino night with different subjects. One subject was about finances, how to help the parents, where to apply for small business loans, for business loans. They have another one where they have parents to understand their kids now with the pandemic and coming back, the kids' behavior changed a lot. So a little bit to understand or where to get help about behavior issues with the kids. So those are examples. So after that, in our meeting, those little packs come to the main meeting and they bring those success stories or issues that they have. They bring it to our meeting, and that's when we all talk about. And that's why we're helping the families to also give them more resources or that help us where they have the federal funds and where we can apply, the parents can apply for federal funds. Not just for that, just for scholarships and anything that is affecting the students. Because in general, the pack is for parents helping your kids too. The kids, the main topic are the kids. And we're here as a parent, as a district, we're here to help the students to be successful. So that's one of the things that we bring to the table. Those are the resources that we give them. Then we have the family liaison people that they are in some schools, they have them, and they are the ones who help the parents with any issue that they can help the parent. It can be as getting them help, like internet help. Some parents cannot get internet, they cannot afford internet, so they guide them. Okay, this is where you can get internet, or this is where you can get some food for your kids. Anything that they can help. So it's kind of three groups helping the community. You know, we're helping the students, the parents are learning how to help their students, and the liaisons who are helping the parents. So that's our purpose. That's what we're trying.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. Another question?
I remember when we would have those more informal meetings. Remember at some of those that I went to, we've been up here a couple of times, and it was just everyone dinner and just had a more informal conversation. And I remember everyone really enjoying that meeting and it feeling really productive and like a great way for us to interact in a less formal way. And I would love to bring that back. And also thank you so much for coming in and sharing with us. It's good to see you in person. And you too.
Thank you. Tenemos un paquete todos los escuelas secundarias. Do we pack it up at all the middle schools?
All the middle schools that you have?
Do they?
No. I have middle schools.
Two of them do.
Two of them? Yes, but I don't know which ones.
I believe it's South Meadows. Evergreen, yeah.
Evergreen and South Meadows, okay.
¿Por qué tú piensas más participaron en las escuelas secundarias? Why do we think even during the pandemic, participation in middle school increased? Like that slide's like, I understand the numbers decreasing in high school, but we see an increase in middle school. What piensas?
One of the things is because now with the Zoom meetings, that makes very easy for the parents to come to the meetings, because now they get out from work and they don't have to go and dress and everything and go to a meeting. Or if no, they are in the meeting while they're at home too. So we see that that's one of the things that the good thing that the pandemic brought, not just into the school system, into the whole society in general, at work. The Zoom meetings are perfect because now you see more people attending to this meeting. And we saw that with the meeting, even at the PAC meeting, the general PAC meeting, we had 30 people. Now with the Zoom meetings, we have 70 or 80 people. So that's what the increase it is. And also with some meetings, it was a good increase there because we're doing the meeting with the Hill High. So that is the principals of Hill Highs and the principals of Mill, they get together. Since we are the same network, and they talk about what is happening on Hill High. So when my daughter was in middle school, in South Middle, I was able, even though she was in 7th grade, I was able to know what was happening ahead of time, what is going on in Hill High. Because the meeting is at the same time with the same people, and you get to know the principal in advance, and they get to know you. So I would suggest if all the high schools and middle school, if they doing the meetings together, that would be great. Because our cases are gonna go to this, you're going to that same middle school, you're gonna go to the high school. So why not to have the same meeting together? But to answer your question, I think it was the pandemic and the Zoom meeting that increased.
The principals of Hill High and South Meadows just shared that strategy with all of the other principals.
They
So
should be great if they do it.
Everyone thought it was a great idea. So I think you will see more of that.
Yes, that's a great.
So she is. That's okay.
Se están acostumbrando a usarlo más el grupo, porque recuerdo como que al principio los padres estaban viendo como talleres de cómo conectarse, ¿verdad? Y usando el Zoom y todo eso. El conocimiento de Zoom y como email y todo eso ha mejorado con los padres, o es como un taller que siguen teniendo con los padres?
Es un taller que todavía se sigue teniendo, pero ya no tan con mucha necesidad como era antes, ¿no? Pero aún así se tiene que seguir siguiendo porque para refrescar la memoria y los Zoom meetings ha ayudado, pero también hay, por ejemplo, Hill High, el pack de Hill High, tenemos nuestros meetings son hybrid. O sea, hay como 5 padres que van a la oficina en el meeting, pero hay otros que no podemos porque trabajamos o algo. Entonces, estamos hybrid, estamos en nuestra casa viendo el meeting. Entonces, ahorita todo nuestro modo de vida está cambiando para todos. Entonces, ya hay más opciones. Ya no es de que, tienes que estar ahí en ese meeting. Porque no puedo estar en ese meeting, pero si el meeting puede ser hybrid, también es conveniente. El chiste es de mandar la información a toda la familia y que las familias puedan participar. Eso es nuestro objetivo.
Y en su opinión, ¿qué es el apoyo más que piden los padres? ¿En qué área?
Pues,
regresando un poquito a la pregunta anterior, yo pienso que algo que ha sido muy bueno también ha sido la inclusividad, the inclusivity of the schools and helping parents connecting in an easier way. Because now we have the text messages with the link. So now you don't have to went through the whole process of a computer, opening up, signing in, just give the click and you connect. That's a great way and things that the schools are doing and probably the district. So that's probably why more people are connecting to the meetings, just because it's more than one way to connect into the meetings. In terms of the assistance that they're getting, that they're asking, personally, I've seen that it changes depending on the needs. We have different cultural backgrounds. Even in Mexico, we have first, second, and third generations. We have parents just begging to have more training in computer access. We have other ones trying to get help transitioning their children into high school or middle school with FAFSA, with the scholarships. We have other ones just asking for emotional assistance because of the transition of the pandemic. So it's hard to say what are the biggest ones because I've seen that in the district meetings. But again, just to talk about the numbers, I've seen a huge increase of people connecting into the district meetings just because presenters, collaboration with different organizations in the community, and especially school just connecting and trying to provide for the parents.
Teníamos una pregunta. ¿Cuánto tiempo vienen teniendo un representante de estudiantes y cuántos estudiantes tienen en su vida? How long have they had a student rep and how many do they have?
This is my second year being part of the representatives. I'm not sure how many years. I think it's
No, that's the first generation.
So I'm the first generation. But yeah, our goal is also we bring our problems from our high schools. So we have people from like Glencoe, Liberty. I'm not sure if we have any from Century right now, but we have about 10 students that represent bringing their problems from the different high schools and we bring them to the PAC meeting, which was one of our goals, is that we were bringing our problems to the big main PAC meeting and sharing to.
Are you, may I ask, are you in the dual program?
Yes, I'm in the dual language program at Hillsboro.
Te estaba preguntando porque también en la mesa directiva pues, tenemos estudiantes que son representantes y entonces me gustaría que en el futuro también esa fuera otra área donde los estudiantes que ya están participando en los PAC puedan aplicar para ser representantes en el distrito también. So I was just saying that we have our student reps and it'd be great to have someone from the PAC there.
De hecho, uno de nuestros representantes aplicó para ser representante de la mesa directiva.
Wow, we have an application.
In the future, we'll have a one of them run for board.
There you go.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Item is career and college pathways. Marcelo Brooke and
Okay,
Are we okay here?
Marcelo Brooke, yeah, go ahead.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hi,
Hello.
welcome, good evening. Now here's something that's really fun. Out of the 8 years that Arsema and myself have worked together, we have never presented at a board meeting.
Oh.
So we're really excited. I know, watch out, this dynamic duo right here tonight. So Brooke Nova, Director of Student Support Networks and Career College Pathways.
Arsema Tovar, I'm Director of Elementary Teaching and Learning and Dual Language.
And our colleague Amanda Bethune is out sick. So they'll recognize her efforts and all of the hard work that she has done in her role as Elementary Career and College Pathways TOSA this year, who's done great work for us. So with that, tonight we're going to specifically focus on our elementary career kits, which are featured kind of against this wall, a sampling of them. Because you know what's really fun? Some of them are coming to the elementaries this fall. So we felt like tonight in our Career and College Pathways update, we should start to share the work, what they look like, and then also give everyone an opportunity to also look at those as well and provide us feedback. So we're going to look at not only the kits, but also the direct connection to our Wonders Mardius curriculum, and that's the wonderful expertise of Arsema tonight and sharing some of that work. And then also what this means in connection for our overall Career and College Pathways journey for our students. I always like to anchor to this visual for us. And really tonight I'm going to call out options lead to opportunities. So when we think about aware, eligible, and prepared, we think about how do we also unlock opportunities for our students? Well, that's ensuring that our students know the options to get to those opportunities. That may mean a trades program. That might mean a stackable credential through Portland Community College, for example. That might mean going right into the world of work and then transitioning on to post-secondary education. That may mean going directly to a four-year college. But for our students to start to engage early on, which is that aware component, to know directly what excites them, how they connect their skills, interests, and abilities at an early age, and then connect to those options and opportunities is not only what we're going to be speaking about tonight, but also Audrey is going to be speaking to that in her presentation around middle school and career action labs, and Travis later on will be speaking to that in the opportunities of hands-on learning and some of the work that our community is supporting us in at that high school level. Our theory of action, what I also like to focus on when we look at our theory of action is if the Hillsboro community. Now, as a school district, we are 100% behind this. We are leading the work, but our Hillsboro community, and I think this is what makes us unique. I had the opportunity to present at the Oregon Career Tech Ed Conference a few weeks ago, and many districts ask us about our work, and I want to share with them, it's about our Hillsboro community responding to our asks. our needs and working in partnership and not siloed. And so over time, over the last 8+ years, we focus on this to also not only support our students, but where they're headed as community members. Because of course, we would love our students to stay within Hillsboro. And so in partnership, being able to support our students, see where they could go, who they can become is a large component of our theory of action. As we continue to refine, adjust, grow career pathways, but also the responsive support systems, right? Because along the way, if we're gonna also ensure our students think about live, work, play as adults in our community, it's also connecting them to the supports that they may need as they become adults. I spoke a little bit to this. Career and college pathways is ever changing. That kind of keeps me in the game, right? This is my 8th year in career and college pathways work, but what's really awesome about it is that our community continues to grow, right? We're at almost 105,000 residents in Hillsboro. With that, industry changes. With that, the diversity of our students, family, community grows. The languages that are spoken within our community because of business and industry grows. So we need to be responsive to that as well. So in that, looking at our business and community needs, we've spoke about before, we look at high wage, high demand from our City of Hillsboro Economic Growth and Development team. We're looking at how our partnerships, once again, meet that theory of action. So it's not only growing our pathways, but the responsive support systems to connect students to that. And it's also listening to our students. So secondary needs assessment right now, which gives us feedback as well of how we meet that mark for our students now and what we need to do in their future. 3 areas that we look at: experiences. So work-based learning is a big focus for us. So that not only means our internships and not only means potential apprenticeship opportunities and not only means informational interviews, but it also means providing some short experiences as well. For example, our Ground Up Coffee Shop, I know that they were here last month. That experience also helps students with their work-based learning skills, some of their soft skills, to then also be connected to a potential long-term internship or potentially connected to a small business in downtown Hillsboro. Communication tools, probably when you were walking up to 218C tonight, you saw the one-pagers in the hallways now. That's a really exciting, that's been a couple of years in the making right there, but it's the continual refinement of our communication tools. We've looked at the secondary one-pagers before, we have our elementary one-pagers, but it's also how do we make sure not only our students, families, and community members can be engaged in those communication materials, because once again, it's about our Hillsboro community wrapping around our students. And then the integration. So especially I call out to this one in our elementary work, in that connection to Wondrous Maravillas. So how do we make sure it's not a one-off? How do we make sure it's supported within the curriculum so that students are reading, they're engaged, they're reflecting? That is a true integrated experience for students. That is the most meaningful that they're going to remember as they continue on then through their journey. This right here, when we talk about the refinement of our one-pager. So here's an example. When we look at automotive technology, we just had our industry advisory committee. So we're also talking about, okay, what's the changes within this pathway? What type of stackable credentials do we not only need to recognize within Portland Community College, but within other institutions? What do we need to bring to our community to ensure that students are prepared for those career possibilities? And then also, how do we connect students' strengths, interests, and talents? So what types of subject areas, what types of Castle core competencies, how do we ensure that we also are in that integration space, are connecting that to our one-pagers as well? And that's something that we ask our industry partners within those meetings, so that we're also updating our one-pagers with that information as well. Just to call out, if I was in high school, this would be really overwhelming to me. There's a lot of pathway options for our students, which is awesome. But that's another reason why We need the career action labs in the middle schools. We need to ensure that our electives are connected to these awesome programs in high school, but that's not good enough, right? We have to also drill down to our elementaries, because by the time our students get to high school, yay, that there's a lot of options, but it also then takes a continuation of refinement to get to a space as they transition to high school of really feeling like I have seen myself reflected in videos and books and experiences, so that I can confidently say, I'm really interested in the culinary pathway at Century High School, and I really want to explore that more. And I also know how there's multiple options to obtain different careers. That's the vision that we're headed towards, because there's a lot that we have created, but we need to continue to refine our backwards mapping. I'm not going to take a lot of time on this because I don't want to steal Audrey's thunder. But here's what I'm also right here. She's going to talk about action labs. But there are other components that we also have within our middle schools. We spoke a little bit about the CCP connection counselors in the fall when we presented. We're going to continue on with that. What that means is we have high school counselors 4 days a week that have a caseload, and then 1 day a week they're at the middle schools, focused on career and college pathways. We also continue to work with our Washington County Chamber. We are in the middle of summer programming and internships, so please let 14 and above year olds know that the website is up, live. Please recruit them for our internship opportunities. And then also our CCP fairs. What's really fun is at Proud to be HSD this Saturday. Beth, did you see my plug I just made for?
Thank you
Proud,
very much.
yeah. You're going to see some of those high school ambassadors though. So we're going to have some of our teachers, but we also have some of our career and college pathway ambassadors, our students, that are also showing and sharing what they're learning, because we've also learned that is the key. Not for, I mean, our teachers are amazing, but when we also get to see our high school students and then elementary, middle school students seeing what they could be, that is a key. Also, career and college pathways is a core to our equity work, because what I spoke about, our community continues to become more diverse, not only in language, but also as global companies move here, as families are raising multi-generations of students. Who we are in Hillsboro, we also need to make sure that we're sharing, showing, discussing all the options that could be for a student, and also not in our bias rule out any option for a student based on what we may have a preconceived notion, either by gender, race, ethnicity. With that, I'm going to transition to Arstema, and she's going to continue on for a while.
Yes, so when we are talking about elementary, it is really important for us to really expose our students to all these pathways to avoid what Brooke was just saying, that in our own skin, as educators, sometimes we, based on our own experiences growing up and what we were exposed to ourselves, we tend to then put those biases on our students. And then we think, oh, well, that student's not gonna go to college, or that student's not gonna do this, or that student should do this. And it's really not our job as educators to tell students what they're gonna be or do, but it is our job to make sure that they're exposed to the different ways or different pathways that they may go. So it's really important for us to continue to check on and reflect on our own biases, so that we are making sure that we are elevating the assets of our students as they're coming in, with those the culture assets, the language assets, the skills that they bring, what their families bring into their homes, so that we can leverage that and say, hey, these are all the ways that you could, as an adult, have a job, and not just what they're exposed as a little kid. So our why is to prepare our students to be able to explore these pathways, and then break down the biases and then early stereotypes, and the types of people in careers and where they sit. So a lot of times, I grew up in Los Angeles. I was born in Guatemala, but grew up in Los Angeles from when I was 10 to 21. And so, I remember coming from a family where my parents only had like a 3rd grade education. I always wanted to be a teacher. And I just knew that I wanted to be a teacher because they couldn't afford to send me to kindergarten. So my dad had his sister come from her little pueblo, her town, to the city in Guatemala to teach me how to read when I was 6. And so they got this little board and she started teaching me how to read, and I just fell in love with that. And from that time on, I wanted to be a teacher. And I don't remember ever having a teacher say, hey, you could be a doctor, or you could be, I exited ESL within a year and a half coming to the US, and that wasn't seen as an asset. That was like, okay, good, you're not in ESL anymore. We'll put you in the lowest language arts class. And then I aced that too, so they moved me to the middle one. But that was it. Nothing was ever shown to me. And at home, my parents didn't have that experience, right? They were at home, they're like, if you want to go to school, you can go to school. But if you don't, then you have to make sure that you get a job. We just want you to do something with your life. And so, but whereas as an educator, I have my 2 kids, and with my 2 kids, I'm like, you don't have an option, you're going to college. What do you want to do? So what are the skills they have? Oh, you like to read, you like to write, you can become a writer. And I start talking to them about that. With that story, there are kids that don't have that at home, just like I did. And so we as educators have to provide those venues where they can see their strengths, they can see themselves in the books and in everything that they do. So that's our goal. Our goal is to be able to help them understand what their strengths are, their talents, and then connect that to what they're learning so that when they do get into middle school, they experience those labs, and then they go into high school and they kind of know which pathway to go into. So about 5 years ago, we started this with our dual language summer school. We started focusing on career and college clubs. We call them clubs. And if you ever had a student come from the dual language schools here and you had a student come, they would have a club every day in the afternoon, and then on Fridays they would perform whatever they learned in their class to their parents. So it was really fun. So we continue to do that, and we've embedded into Migrant Summer School. So this is from last year. We were fortunate enough to have started purchasing some books that were college career readiness. And we were able to pilot them through summer school, and the kids had a lot of fun. The teachers gave really good feedback as to the responses of the kids and how engaged they were in their learning. So these are the goals of the elementary career kids. Again, it's self-awareness and social awareness, awareness for our students, so that they can understand how the different pathways that they have, learning about their strengths and talents, interests, and the next steps, and allowing for frequent reflection. It's okay to change your mind. You want to be a teacher, but then tomorrow you don't want to be a teacher. That's okay, because you're exploring. Increased diversity, equity, and inclusion in the Hillsboro community is critical. So that's the other piece that I think it's so impactful when you're able to invite someone from the community to come and speak. We've had Intel people come, we've had the owner of the market, Mexico marketplace in Hillsboro come and speak to the kids and really show our kids that there are people out there that are diverse, that are in these careers where they can get inspired, right? And they get connected and start creating ideas of what they want to become. So we did want it to be integrated because, of course, this cannot be like Brooke was saying, this thing on the side. It really needs to be connected to the instruction that we do every day. So our team of TOSAs and a few classroom teachers got together, and they, based on the themes for each of the Wonders and Maravillas units, we were able to identify, if you look at the right-hand side, it's so small, but you have the PowerPoint if you want to look at it. But for instance, in first grade, One of the things is how does your body move? And so that one can be connected to health sciences. And then we start building kits or building activities that are connected to health sciences so that students are aware of the different careers that health sciences provides. And if they have those skills and those strengths, they can explore that more and learn that more, and maybe one day become a doctor if they want, or they're orthodontist, or any other field.
So each of the kits that you see tonight have gone through this process of a feedback loop. And so this is what I wanted to call out around how we select our books, how we select the materials, the feedback from our summer programming. Each of these stakeholder groups have been continuing to provide us feedback to ensure that our industry partners are reviewing the tools that we have in each kit, that our teachers are giving us feedback of, you know, within Wonders Maravillas, give us feedback on the project that is in each of these. So as we go through this, and the CCP Champions group is a really key component of that teacher feedback too. Amanda is meeting with teachers from all over district once a month, providing an opportunity to not only dig into these specific kits, but then a look ahead of what's to come as well. This is really key because thank you Hillsboro Schools Foundation for how much they are fundraising and leveraging this opportunity for us. So we want to make sure that we're also along the way making sure that we have those feedback loops and providing opportunities for our stakeholders to share their thoughts and drive the work instead of in silo us deciding that on their behalf. So here's an example also through elementary leadership collaboration. I also have these feedback tickets on the tables tonight, but we ask your wonderings, your questions. What are you excited about? What are you worried about? So here are some of the quotes from some of our elementary teachers sharing their excitement, some of their wonderings that they have on the kits. Here's our career kit timeline, but I just have to say, we actually changed it a little bit last week. So instead of deploying 4 kits next year, we're deploying 1 kit per grade level. And what we're asking our teachers is just explore. This first year, each grade level is going to have 1 kit. What do you like? How's this working for you? What additional training do you need? So we have made a slight adjustment. You'll see that in that phase 1.5, it says 4 kits, and we're actually going to deploy 7 kits. So that the first year is really going to be about just playing with it. Then you'll see continuing on though, this is a kind of a 3-year plan of continuing to provide more kits. What's going to happen is every grade in every school gets 2 kits that are aligned to our career learning areas. So over this expansion time, by the time we reach in that summer of 2024, 2 kits per grade level, every school will be on site.
And actually our pre-K students are ahead of the game because they already have a science kit in every classroom and they have been using it this year. Okay.
There we go. Here are some pictures of what is behind you or what's in front of you. And once again, you're going to have that time during break after the meeting to dig into this. So here is the Kinder kit. Kinder is intro to career learning areas. So you'll see it's a lot about engagement, play. That is really the foundation of the work. That's also tied to our early learning kits that we're looking at deploying as well. Then we're going to go to first grade. You may have seen this one before. This was kind of our first prototype kit. This was for industrial engineering systems. This one, also you'll see a building a bridge activity, a variety of books that not only may challenge the bias of gender, but race, ethnicity as well. And so with each of these kits, the book selection has been really key and important. You'll be able to see some of those books tonight too. And then our 3rd grade one, now here's kind of an interesting component about this one. Alaska Horizon Air is helping to fund each of the kits for 3rd grade aerospace instead of using our school's foundation dollars. So what's nice about that is that we're then able to use those foundation dollars to either increase materials within the kits, use some of it for our early learning kits. But this one you'll see right behind you, as well as kind of our last one. I did a Kinder 1-3, and that's a lot of materials and dollars from aerospace from Alaska Air. 6th grade one, this is the one that is going through a feedback loop right now. So that's a health sciences kit, but you'll see some of the pieces and components that Amanda's actually meeting with the elementary leadership group next week for CCP champions to get some more feedback on this one. So when you have an opportunity tonight for your kit station, you're going to see a little one-pager, and it has questions, wondering, feedback. And if you could take some time either during your break or after the meeting to provide some of that, really we look at each feedback sheet that helps us to make sure that we're on track on what we are ordering, what we need to be thinking about, what questions different stakeholders have, so that we can work that also into our presentations, and also, once again, those feedback loops back. If you have any specific questions, Amanda, our teammate, is not here tonight, so I did want to highlight her email, as she really is our champion and our specialist in this work. So that is her email if you have any specific questions. I just want to say thank you for your time. And if you do have any questions, we'd be more than happy to entertain them.
When you deploy these kits,
yeah,
you said like 1 per grade, which doesn't quite sound like it's enough. So are these being deployed to like the team leads, and then the team leads decide how many classrooms can access this? Because I mean, any elementary would use all of this simultaneously.
So it's in a 3-year rollout. So next year there's 7 kits. So a kinder kit and shared between 2 teachers, a 1st grade kit shared between 2 teachers. So between our 26 schools, they'll each have their kit. And then what Amanda has done is kind of through that Wonders Marvius unit mapping, it's exploring your unit, but then also just for next year, how does this kit resonate with your kinder duo, with your 1st grade duo? What else do we need to be providing in the next round of kit deployment, which will be in 23-24. So we're starting with 7, but we're going to continue to expand. And this is difficult for me, but we're moving kind of slow on this one because we want to continue with a feedback loop and making sure that we're meeting the mark of our educators. As we do a slower rollout than just kind of
and the kids
deploying all the
are
kids at once.
Flexible enough that teachers can decide when to, use them within their units. So it could be in the middle of the unit, it could be at the end of the unit, it could be that they do a little bit, at the beginning and then a little bit at the end. So they have that flexibility that they can decide when to use them. So they don't have to do it at the same time in both classrooms.
Last question. Are you combining this effort, which is phenomenal, with an effort to try to figure out if there are people in the community who actually do represent the very children? Like, for example, are we looking for Latino dentists? Are we looking for the Latino doctors? Are we looking for Black doctors? I'm just asking because it's that when you talked about being aware that children need to see that face that resembles them, that was the first thing I went to. Are we bringing those live individuals to them?
Yes, we're either bringing them live or we're asking for recording. So you'll see there's some pictures of some different, like a pilot, the TSA check-in person, but we're asking each of those industries to either record or, if able, to sign up to come in person and speak. So that's part of Amanda's work, is either can we get you to record something, or would you sign up to come to Middlebridge Elementary so that when the 3rd grade teachers are doing their kit, to speak about your industry.
And also,
Good question.
yeah, it's also important for the teacher to get to know their own classroom community and the assets that those, the families are bringing into the classroom. And so if they have a specific unit that they're working on, then if there's someone in the room whose parent is an architect, and you invite them to come and speak. I think it's so important for the kids to also see their friends, family members also coming in and seeing the community come into the classroom, whether it's virtual or in person, so that they're exposed to that diversity from an early age.
Monique, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I'm just wondering, I was looking at the one pager that you had up on the slide with all the different options at the different high schools. So if there is a career college pathway at, say, Liberty that's not offered at, say, Century, how did the students access that other pathway?
Okay, so Monique, we have the Career College Pathway shuttle system. So some of our programs are on the shuttle, not all of them, but fire science, automotive, welding are a few. And so students in the morning will go to their home high school, jump on a shuttle, go to the hub, which is located at the tennis court, kind of the tennis courts at the fairgrounds, jump on that bus and then go to the school that provides that opportunity. Would we love to expand that? 100%. So as we continue to grow programs or think about the accessibility of programs, the shuttle system though does lend itself to routing students from a different school to one that has that opportunity. That's a great question.
Thank you.
Travis's show.
Yeah.
Still the t-shirt.
Carol's show.
I also just wanted to recognize that I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago, we went and did a little tour at Blanco to look at that career college pathways, and I think it was like electrical and construction or something like that. And I remember talking to some students because there were only 2 girls there, and they were saying how they wish they would have known about this earlier. So I remember like bringing that back and saying like, when can we start reaching into the elementary level? So it's like a great feedback with the work that you've done in that time to say, how can we, I think you went to middle school and then you thought more further to go down to elementary to say, how can we start there? So by the time that they get up to the high school, they already know what's available in their district. So my only feedback was 2 things. One, is this something that maybe potentially we could also have as one of those areas to have a that connection and conversation with our Latino parent pack that came here and like present this and say like, here's what's happening at the elementary school level. And then the other thing was at the kinder fairs, like having these kids at like the kinder fair so that the families, when we first, sometimes they're the first interaction that we have with new families, it would be great for them to also see like what's waiting for their kids in the district.
Yeah, and I think, Tanya, like you said, your parents, had just, grade school education. So I know there's a lot of parents out there just like that really don't know what to expect for their kids and may have like their own like expectations of like, what their children are supposed to do. And they can only, I guess, go as far as what they know. And so really during, especially the early elementary school years, I think it's really important to involve the different packs and letting them know that this is what kids are learning. Because I just think of my own experience, because like you, my parents only had a grade school education. And, I didn't hear a lot of like, you're going to college, you're going to do this, because my parents didn't know what was out there. They only knew what they knew. So involving the parents at this young age, I think is really, really important.
Which one of you was connected directly with the dual language program? Do I ask a question about that program directly to you?
Yeah, you can email me.
Gail, looks like something you want to add?
Yes, good evening. Sorry, I'm not there. You can hear from my voice. I have a nice cold. Trying to keep you all healthy. I just would like to just make a comment about some of the work that Alano's doing. Some of this work that we had started in elementary a couple years ago got stalled a little bit because of COVID and because of the structure. But we know one of the things that we want to do better, and it sort of connects to what Yadir was just saying, is helping our families when we have conferences really mine their wisdom about their student as the teacher is noticing things about the student in their classroom and starting to talk about what are the strengths of the student, both those personal skills and attributes, as well as maybe their college and career interests, so that we can be partners in helping our students graduate career and college ready. Right now in our conferences, I don't think we're doing the best job in terms of really reflecting the many strengths of our students. It tends to be around test scores, which are important, but we also know that there's other attributes. And so we actually have been working as a team, and Alano and his team has done just a great job. They have a pilot of something that we're going to try to launch in the fall, maybe with conferences, to start getting our kids and our families talking more about college and career in our elementary schools, kind of that long-term trajectory as we partner in supporting students. So it's a great product. You'll hear more about it, but there's some amazing work going on with trying to do a better job of partnering with parents and teachers and students.
I think we also have those additional days before school starts now for teachers to connect with families. So maybe that would be an area where they can kind of get at those strengths of what strengths does your family come with, or skill sets or things that they can start learning ahead of time. Great.
One of the reasons we wanted to share this with you tonight is that for the last couple of years, most of the presentations that the board has received have been very reactive and responsive to the current situation, the circumstances that we found ourselves in. But we're really proud of being able to move forward a lot of this work, even during these past 2 years. And Erica, thank you for remembering that this conversation was had a couple of years ago regarding getting this down into the elementary level. And that work has happened, as well as the expansion of the number of pathways that we have. So thank you, Representative Brooke, for sharing this tonight. And Audrey hasn't shared her part, but she was a major player in getting this at the middle school level as well. So really appreciate all the work that's been done. We've come a long way since Travis carried around that metal sign with the shuttle for a whole year. So really appreciate it. Thank you.
Right there. I mean, the shuttle, I love the shuttle. So, I mean, the idea of building 4 whatever you can afford auto programs or one amazing auto program and getting kids there makes a lot of sense. All right.
Thank you.
So just for reference, we do not have a break. We're about 25 minutes behind, and the next presentation is 36 slides. So please look at that stuff when we're all done.
100%.
Right? But yeah. So sorry.
But we'll keep it up all night for you. I'm sorry.
All right.
Down now.
I know, sorry.
No, we always go on. So it's our thing. All right, chances up.
Okay, so I'm going to do like the 5-minute version and click through slides and talk about them. But the goal tonight was to give you guys information about workforce and apprenticeship, so that when you hear things about Future Ready Oregon and workforce, you say HSD is involved in that. And in many cases, we're leading that work, so that you don't have a lack of information. This is all public information, but it's hard to weave it all together and find it. So feel free to look through these slides and then call me, because I love talking about this stuff. I also want to remind folks that tonight I'm going to talk about healthcare and advanced manufacturing, but HSD is also leading the way in teacher pipelines, and we're scholarshiping kids to become teachers and counselors. And we're also leading the way in aerospace. We're setting up a program at the airport where folks can become pilots and mechanics. So tonight's just one snippet. I'm also sharing on behalf of a big team, and if I name 20 people, I would disrespect 20 others. So this isn't just me. This is folks from the city and from the chamber and businesses and teachers. Some folks are also a little bit skeptical of workforce. They say, Travis, how come you care so much about giving kids jobs and just helping industry? My equity stance on all this is that we're trying to match diverse, talented human beings with awesome jobs for the purpose of economic empowerment, self-determination. So that's where I come from in this work. It's not just about making money, although it's sort of is a bit about it. Brooke covered our theory of action around career pathways. Manufacturing is important in Hillsboro. There are 4 leading occupations, and you can look at the distribution of them in Washington County in 2021. We have this data coming to us from the Economic Development Department of the City of Hillsboro. And we anticipate massive job growth in Washington County and in Hillsboro specifically in the next decade. And in Washington County, we have a huge above average job concentration in this sector compared to national averages. And we also have the ability to make money in this town. And I want our young people to be able to have pathways to do that. There's a collaborative that was brought together by the city, Christy Wilson and Intel, Genesis Mullins, and they put together a workforce collaborative to figure out in the next decade, what do we do to make sure that advanced manufacturing jobs are open to diverse humans? And they came up with 3 strategies, and pre-K-12 education is called out as one of the strategies in the next decade to make sure that we have enough workforce in advanced manufacturing and that workforce is demographically representative of people. Fast forward to healthcare. Healthcare is also really important in Washington County. This is a distribution in 2020 of the occupations. We had 8,000 or 4,800 registered nurses, and then you can go on down from home health care aides to the other top occupations in this sector. The problem is that through job openings and replacements as people retire, we have a giant talent gap. And we predict massive growth in this area too as the West Side expands. And not all the jobs in that sector require a master's degree or a doctoral degree. A lot depend on the high school diploma, post-secondary programs, and bachelor's degrees. And in fact, because the stars were aligning this week, Rochelle Carnes at Century sent me photos from her program of medical assistants doing their thing at Century. And we've got a partnership going on with Virginia Garcia and PCC and HSD, which may result in training center / clinic / shared classroom space with our friends at PCC. It is possible that could end up in block 67 or 56 in a new development that's happening with the city of Hillsboro, who owns where the old Hanks Thriftway used to be. We may be able to, through our property there and a bond with PCC and resources from new workforce grants, create something together. I don't want you to be the last to hear that. This is a public document. It's the RFP response from the developer called Red Bull that's the leader in the Block 67 project. And with all that, the legislature passes Future Ready Oregon, which is $200 million toward workforce in 3 sectors. What are they? Healthcare, manufacturing, and technology. They were stealing from our playbook. And this means that in Oregon, we'll be able to go after competitive grants to form industry consortia that are specific to healthcare and manufacturing. We'll also be able to go after workforce readiness grants with our partners. And so I'd like the board to be able to speak to this with some new terms that are coming up. You probably know these already. ODE's framework is strikingly similar to what Brooke Nova shared about awareness, eligibility, and training that kids on work. What's a little different in Hillsboro is that starting at the bottom, you can see career kits, career labs, field trips, career days, essential skills. We really are starting with a pre-K through career approach to this, stacking all the way up to a new word that's a buzz phrase for everybody, which is apprenticeship. A lot of this money is going toward apprenticeship, which isn't strong in Oregon yet. But in Hillsboro, we've been training for this, thanks to Brooke and her squad, for years. And last summer, we had 350 paid student interns. They worked 12,000, almost 13,000 hours and earned lots of money, supporting our younger students mostly. And we're about ready to become the first registered youth apprenticeship in the state of Oregon in the field of advanced manufacturing. And apprenticeship is different because it actually is registered with BOLI, the Bureau of Labor and Industry, and at the federal level with the Department of Labor. And it requires us to pay people. It requires us to have them to have mentors on the job and a lot of documentation. And around the country, people are doing this because it creates a pipeline and it's a great investment for business. It's also great for kids. And if you want to participate, you can help us. If you're an advanced manufacturing firm, you can be part of our team, or you could even sponsor a student apprentice. And this document is just cool. Instead of that metal sign, I now carry around this, which is a registered apprenticeship, which will be signed by Val Hoyle in June, because Claudia Rizzo is going to take this piece of paper to Salem and say, can you please sign this to make us a certified manufacturing technician apprenticeship in Hillsboro, with HSD being the administrator of that apprenticeship. That's all.
Good job.
Wow. Great. It's going to be good.
You've been a little busy.
Well, like Mike said, this is like stuff that went on behind the scenes, and I'm just happy to share on behalf of the team, because while everybody was at home Zooming, we were collaborating with our partners and building relationships. So I'm proud to represent the teams.
I just want to say this is an area that I think everybody in like, school boards or the state can really get behind workforce development. And I also just want to say like that in our community, we've had a lot of economic opportunities. And I think it's really important for us to make sure that we're creating an opportunity for our students to capitalize on those opportunities. And we want our community to be happy, healthy, and wealthy. So, I mean, no problem with that. If our students can have great careers, great jobs that keep them here, that's amazing. So, thank you for your work.
Other questions or comments?
So I'm waiting to tell to say this for a couple meetings. There hasn't been an opportunity, but now here it is. Thanks, Travis. So I teach in a nearby school district. I serve for FBT in the school where I teach. And a couple of FBTs ago, we were talking about, diversifying our teacher force, right? And how important that is, and how everybody wants to do that, much like we were saying earlier in this meeting. And, into this little work group that we've got going on, we spend most of the time talking about how great Hillsboro is, growing their own, and how jealous we are of their program. And Ryan just thinking, good job, Hillsboro. Isn't that great? And then also started talking about a lot of the career pathways. The work that has been done in these areas and the other districts wish that they were quite as cool.
So good that we're gonna have a meeting in May to present our work with other districts.
Oh, right.
A regional meeting.
Yeah.
I think Claudia, Brooke, and Christy from the city will be at that meeting too, so we have
great.
firsthand information sharing.
Other questions? So great. Yeah. We're all super excited. Thank you, Travis, for sharing on behalf of 100% people. Tons of people. All right. Let's go, Audria.
That's me. And what's super fun is we didn't plan this, but we're all talking about college and career pathways kind of in all of our countries, not organized at all. Which is awesome. So, yeah. Stand.
Just start that, and I don't have to stand.
Okay, I'm gonna go sit. That's okay.
Just talk to the owl. That's all you.
Oh, that's right. Talk to the owl. I will do that. All right. So you have my copy of the next slide. Audrey Neville, Executive Director of Schools. I oversee all of our middle schools and 11 of our elementary schools.
We'll have new titles starting July 1.
The new titles does start July 1, but we don't talk about it until July 1. So one of the things we wanted to give you an update, part of our SIA funding, and if you've been around long enough, you've heard me say middle school really needs a 7 period day, and I've probably said that for 5 years, and people really got tired of it actually. So I think we probably said we got to stop listening to that or stop hearing that from her, and part of SIA allowed us to do a 7 period day at the middle school, and if you remember when we talked about this, what it does is it gives our students, all of our students, access to an elective, because we have requirements that we have to have at middle school around the 4 core, including PE and health. And then students that were getting language services or students with disabilities that needed SEI from another grade didn't have access to our electives necessarily. So it really was an equity issue. So by doing the 7-period day, we have given all of our students access to at least one elective in their day, which is amazing. And as you heard about the college and career pathways that we have for students at our high school, middle school is another place of exploration and awareness, right? And we need to be able to give our students that opportunity. So I just wanted to kind of just remind everybody what this gave us at middle school and why it's been such a wonderful opportunity. We've also been able to add support classes with the pandemic and all that has come from that. We do know that learning acceleration needs to happen as well. And so one of the areas that we've also been able to add is a support class. So some of our students that might not be getting, that might be struggling in language arts and math have been given a support class to accelerate their learning, to kind of fill in some of those gaps that happened in the pandemic. One of the amazing things that, as I've looked, we have 17 language arts support classes across our middle schools and 24 math. Math is definitely the area where we've seen some gaps, and so that's been great to have that additional support there. But just being back in person, support classes, smaller class sizes, particularly in the core, came from the 7-period day as well. We have seen a 73% reduction in our Fs across the board at middle school. Now, obviously in CDL, there's lots of challenges to see kids in middle school and those things, but there's this importance of having kids in our schools and again, giving them the supports that they need. So it's just been really, really amazing for our students. New electives added or brought back in times of cut, we had to cut electives at the middle school. So things like drama, beginning band, we've added a creative writing class, which has been amazing for our students actually, because they want to express themselves after 2 years of, a lot of angst at times. So that's been an amazing class. And then our career action labs that we're going to talk about a little bit. So just kind of wanted to give everybody that framework of what's happening in our middle schools around the 7-period day and what it's really brought for them. Up to the next slide. The other piece that we've been doing in middle school is a math growth assessment. And this was another piece. We have ESPA at the end of every year. It's kind of like the one point in time. But really what we wanted to do at middle school was have a look at our growth of our kids. And so this year we've done the math growth assessment, and it happens twice in the year for our middle school students. And it's just a consistent assessment for all of our middle school students. We do something very similar in elementary with STAR and running records, which look at our math data and our reading data. But again, we didn't have something consistent across all 4 middle schools. And so we have started this math growth assessment, and it's really an assessment that's focused on growth of students, tracking how they are doing over time, focusing on grade level priorities, and then really kind of taking that information and informing our instruction. This is our first year doing this across all 4 middle schools. It's new. We're definitely learning a lot more about the tool. It's been challenging. There's some, a few glitches here and there, but what's really great to see is you can see students and where they move. So I just put a sample up there over time. If they're in the low average, we can look at their data, figure out what we need to do to support them, and then hopefully move our percentages up. So it's really just been, again, a good tool to look at the overall picture of middle school and then dial down to what we need to focus on. And this assessment is in math and language arts skills. So but learning a lot more about that. That is a picture, just FYI, from the Optimus Awards. I don't know if you've ever been to those. It's very, very fun. It's put on by the Optimus Club in Hillsboro, and all of our friends are there. So you can see cute faces. And then if we go to the next slide, the Career Action Labs, which is really something that has been a partnership with HSF and all about exactly what Brooke and Arsema and Travis were talking about, creating awareness and opportunity for our middle school students. This is in all 4 of our middle schools. It was a partnership through HSF that has funded over, I want to say close to $1 million for us to do this. And multiple sections offered in all of our schools. So this year alone, roughly 300 of our students will go through the Career Action Lab. If you were here the last time, I described it as kind of an appetizer course for kids, where they get to go into the lab, and there are 18 different modules. Just to give you an example of some of the modules, there's alternative energy, digital manufacturing, flight and drone technology, video production, culinary arts, energy and power, forensic, pharmacology. I mean, there's just a huge amount of modules that students are able to do. And what it allows them is a 2-week kind of intensive look at that career, those opportunities that exist within that career, and what students could do with that Does that make sense? And so and then what's even more amazing is the high school connection. So now they're heading to high school using the college and career counselor that knows what Century, Liberty, and Hill High and Glencoe have to offer. And they're taking that information and saying, what did you like about your career action lab class at middle school? Okay, this is awesome because we have the construction program that's available at Glencoe High School. If you were really into digital manufacturing, you can go to Century to do, I can't even think of the guy's name that'll come to me. There we go, Matt Lundscup. And so I think what's really just awesome is it, again, gives kids an opportunity to see what they like, what they don't like, and they're all connected to high wage, high demand jobs. So it's really, and then connecting now elementary, we will have this beautiful pathway for kids to really have an idea of what they want to do for their future. So I think this has been probably one of the most favorite class of kids. If you ever go and do lunch duty, you can stand in the line and you always ask kids what's their favorite class. Many, many times I hear that this is their favorite class because they're getting to explore and see things that they like and they don't like and having fun just doing different things. These are kids doing, I think this is the alternative energy one, and they build like a windmill and they get to, the fans there and they get to see if it'll work and they connect it to power. It's an amazing opportunity. If anybody ever wants to go, I'll happily take you on the tour. It's my favorite class to go visit. The piece that's really also great as well is, again, as we connect to forecasting, which happened just this last month, basically in our middle school, they really are feeling more connected to their high school in a different way, if that makes sense, for their pathways. And I think if we can help kids, again, figure out what they like, what they don't like, and find themselves, that will be all the more better as they move into their future. So just kind of wanted to give you a quick overview. That was super fast because I know we're behind schedule. But I'm happy to answer any questions about our middle school that you might have. Oh, and kids can take the class twice and they can go to all 18 modules too. So they can take it one more time and see eight to 10 more different modules. It's amazing.
For the 7th period, did the day have to get longer or just everything else kind of reshuffled?
The day did not get longer, but the periods did shorten by about 3 to 4 minutes each. Good question.
I was just gonna say that I like the high school connection because I think that's something that we've heard before, that it's really hard to build that relationship in middle school when they're only there for 2 years, and how do you have this continuum that goes with them afterwards. So I really appreciate this, that being part of this kind of work is connecting them so that they're ready when they go into high school.
I think sometimes our kids in forecasting, they see that slide that Brooke shared with all the options that their high school has, and it's so overwhelming. But now they have something to kind of anchor back to, be like, oh, I actually know kind of what automotive technology is. I kind of know what the aerospace program is because I've done flight and drone technology, and they can start to see the connections of what they've done in middle school.
And I feel very fortunate to have been enlisted to edit the video for HSF fundraising on the career action. So I feel like I love the program so much, the career action lab. So yeah, you were in it and we got to put together, we only had one, I think at that point, didn't we?
Yeah, just when you're at that time.
HSF was raising money, so to build the other 3. And it's so great to be at all our middle schools now.
And really awesome too, we've been, South Meadows is going to add one more career action lab, and Evergreen actually was able to use some rollover funds and add another lab as well. So just again, 300 kids this year. I mean, really by the end of a 7th and 8th graders career, they'll hopefully about 85 to 90% of our kids will have at least gone through one career action lab cycle through an elective choice.
Other questions? All right. We don't talk about the new titles. So like, don't touch the Stanley Cup until you win the Stanley Cup. It's like a weird superstition.
I know, right? I know. I'm sorry, somebody said that. I thought about Bruno, and I said,
All right, Francesca, you are our next topic.
Yeah, it all does kind of tie together. As I was listening to the CCP and the workforce and what we're doing in 7th grade with career, or 7th and 8th grade with the career action labs, it reminds me of what we've been talking about a lot lately when we talk about equity, is that fostering of belonging in our schools, regardless of your zip code, regardless of your race. an appreciation of your race and an appreciation of your zip code. With all of that including, it's that fostering of belonging that we want to have for all of our students. And so this quote rang out to me. It's in a book that I'm reading right now. So if you want to read a book, I got an idea for you. Belonging or being fully human means more than just having access. And I think tonight we talked a lot about all the access points we're providing for students. Belonging also entails being respected at a basic level that includes the right to both co-create and make demands on society. And I think our PAC today, with what they were saying of being wanting to be able to co-create and make their voice apparent, what we hear from the collaboration that's taken place with what Amanda has done, with the collaboration of our middle school principals, they've all wanted to co-create as we build that belonging, which is more than just having access. And so tonight, I'm just going to give you a few updates of what we've been working on in the Equity, Access, and Engagement group. And let's go to the next slide. Let's go back on our journey of where we've been the last few years. And I want to be really transparent. This is work since I arrived here in this district 9 years ago that we have always done. So when I say our equity journey, there's phase 0.5, 0, -1. I'm just using it since the years that I've been able to co-create in this position. And so in phase 1, we really focused on foundation and alignment. And that was looking at the vocabulary, who was getting access to our schools and our community and in what groups, our communication and resources and the targeted PD we're providing for people, for our staff. And so that was phase 1 and that was last year. This year we focused on phase 2, which is anchoring to our school goals and our equity policy as a district, really looking at culturally responsive instruction and culturally responsive school leadership with a deep dive into discourse and how do we move the conversations in our building to a higher, a deeper level of discourse. As we move into next year, we're going to be really looking at sustainable integration. So with all of this CCP, interventions, our college and career pathways, our workforce industries, how can we sustainably integrate and collaborate in order to move our equity, access, and engagement work forward? And so I want to look back at phase 2 just to remind us all where we've been this year. We continue to do quarterly PD, as well as this year we started meeting people within the team that I supervise and myself. We're meeting with teams and administrators on a weekly basis, not all of them, just some. And I've been able to successfully meet with all of our administrators independently one-on-one at least twice this year, as well as our equity team has met with equity, access, and engagement teams within each of the buildings to provide that hands-on support. In connections, we've established quarterly meetings with our school level departments, as well as school-based and department-based equity leadership teams that have worked with us on a quarterly basis to go over professional development, what our next steps are, problems of practice. And we've also strengthened our relationships with our PAC teams, our family engagement, our Latino groups, or Native American, as well as our Black Village family group. Some of the supports we're continuing to do, we have weekly newsletters that go out with resources for all of our staff. We have different things that we've had to respond in crisis, especially when the war broke out in the Ukraine. We have a template and ideas of how we can get that information out and how we directly talk to our staff that may identify that way. There is a way we've been able to, over the last couple of years with the Asian hate we've had in the past with George Floyd, to set up a system that we are sure that we are responding to our staff members and taking care of them, but also being there and providing resources for our schools when a crisis occurs. And then just continual meetings with administrators at an individual needs basis. So when the phone call goes off, we dispatch people into buildings, as well as meet and collaborate with our level supervisors to see what kind of support is going to be needed. A lot of times it's restorative circles that need to take place because there is a situation that has occurred where there is a relationship that needs to be restored. And so we help and support in that way. And so one of the other things that we've been working on this year is really elevating the voices of all through action. In our district, we talk a lot about knowing kids by name, strength, and need. And so when we talk about elevating voices, it's that we know our kids by name, strength, and need, and what action are we gonna take based on that. And so some of our student examples of what we've worked on this year is we've gone to school-based teams. We have student listening sessions. Mike had quite a few listening sessions to hear our students, and then we come back and we take the feedback, and as a cabinet level team, as well as our level supervisors, talk about what do we need to do in order to meet the students' needs. There are student equity teams, and I had a wonderful experience of just last week. I was over at the week before, I was over at one of our elementary schools and got to meet with our student equity team at a school who has a time designated for them throughout their work week to meet. And the conversations are so rich. Our kids know what they need. They absolutely know what they need and what they want. It's about us listening to them and going back to that beginning statement that we need to allow them to co-create with us as they ask us in their, I don't want to say demands, but when they ask us when they give us their feedback, it's about co-creating with them. Some staff examples, we have ongoing affinity groups. This year we added our classified affinity group. Dorothea actually helps facilitate that. And we have our administration, and then we have our license. And our license affinity space was just awarded a grant through REN to support it even further moving into the years to come, with helping to support especially our staff of color who may need something different in their affinity space that at this time we haven't uncovered that they need, but the funding is going to be available for them. So really excited about that. With our family engagement group, we're working right now, Olga's team and a few from my team, just working in partnership to really relook at, and I'm sure several of you will be involved in that, our family engagement handbook, our manuals, how it's set up on our website, because that's one area that we have access because it's on the website, but is it user-friendly for our families that are coming on to get it, and is the right information on there to engage our families? So that's something we're going to continue to work on this summer. And then just more partnerships that we've had with our community. We're working real closely. One of the tools we use in elementary school when we talk about behavior and regulation is PAC's tools. And one thing we went back to them, and we have a grant with them with Washington County, is they need to make their work a little bit more culturally responsive. It is not, it does not necessarily always reflect our students, and at times can be felt as teaching our children to be compliant rather than them to be themselves and their authentic selves. And so they are now working to update their materials, and the hope is that that will be something that we will be able to partner with them as they move through and work through those materials. We also have we're working with GROW, which is our basic rights organ that works specifically with our students who identify as LGBTQ, and then just various Washington County groups and through the VAN project of building those partnerships with our community, having access to them, but also being able to co-create with them for our students. So phase 3 is what we're going to be doing in the year to come. Sustainable integration and collaboration. With foundation, we really know that we have to focus on onboarding our new staff. We have had a lot of new staff turnover at some of our schools during the pandemic and in going into next year. So when we talk about foundations and we go back to what we originally started with, which is building that vocabulary, that understanding, and having common concepts that were shared, we know that for our new staff, that is something that we need to do moving into next year. Refining our systems and structures with student, family, and staff engagement, and supporting the collaboration of stakeholders to affirm and facilitate ongoing learning. These aren't solidified yet. We will have a work group this summer that will come and really start getting those targeted areas, because what we are wanting to focus on in the year to come is when we say we know our students by name, strength, and need, what we want in the year to come, in order for all of this to happen, is for students to know themselves by their name, strength, and need. When I was talking with high school students last Friday, we had over 30 students who came. They called it HSD United, and they were mostly juniors and seniors from our high schools. They have a hard time self-identifying their strengths, their needs, and their wants. Like some know it, but it's very difficult for them to talk at times positively about themselves and know exactly where they're going. And so when we go to the next slide, I know me, I see me. So when we talk about that sustainable integration and collaboration, we want our students to know that when you know me and see me, we affirm their identities, their strengths, and their cultures of all our students. And that goes, when I say all, I mean all. That we know that sometimes we need to be attentive to the parts, right? We know the sum is all, and that sometimes we need to pay attention and give extra attention to the ones that are in the part, right? I'm going back to my math days. You've got some, you've got parts. Any of you ever do or just math? Just me. Okay. Anyways, that affirming their identities, their strengths, and their cultures, elevating their voices and agency. Kids need to know that when they give that feedback, that we're going to take it and we're going to use it to build the belonging within their schools. Create belonging, cultivate curiosity, which is going to be done with a lot of the things that you've seen today, and collaborative problem solving, as well as nurturing the strengths of all students. So you might ask yourself, how are we going to get there? Well, here's the idea. We are going to focus on the 5 core competencies, and Brooke kind of hinted to this earlier. The 5 core competencies are social emotional learning that will help us as we aid in our sustainable integration and collaboration, because we know when we talk equity work, it is not in isolation. It is not a destination, it's a journey. And when we talk about students knowing themselves by name, strength, and need, it's not a checkbox. They're going to grow, develop, and change throughout their lives. And there's always those key things they need to know. So it's becoming self-aware. It's knowing self-management. It's knowing social awareness. It's having those skills to make responsible decision-making. And it's about building relationships. So in our work with equity, using SEL as a lever for equity next year, we're going to really focus on these 5 core competencies so students can know themselves. So that when you ask them, what's my name, strength, and need, they know it. And from that, I know I want to do this. I want to explore this in elementary school, and I want to take this in middle school, and I want to potentially do an internship or an apprenticeship in high school. You won't know that in 2nd grade, but you need those 6-7 years, because for many of our students, it is already decided for them in their head by the narratives our society has put forward in front of them. By the time they've made it to middle school, for some of them, it's too late. For some of them, somebody's already told them enough times, you are going to be X, Y, and Z. And so if we can gain their understanding of themselves, the way they manage themselves, the way they're aware of others, and being socially aware is like knowing my own biases and knowing how to have a conversation with somebody when we have different of opinions. We're not always going to agree on it, but can you make a responsible decision, be socially aware in order to engage in that discussion? And so that will be our focus as we move next year. And I don't need to give you any more than that because we are over time. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to take a few minutes to answer them.
I love it that you're in with the schools. I love it. I like that you're going to see them and talk to them. And that's probably the most important thing. They need to see us. So thank you for the hard work.
Can't see the online folks who have questions.
I just wanted to say, like, first, like, for us that have been on the board for a while, just pausing to say, like, wow, look at who we are. Remember where we were, like, 5 years ago around this work, and, like, now having a position that is actually having this structure and it's formalized and there's a body of work and the skill set, Fran, that you bring is amazing to look at our system, really, and how do we incorporate this. So I really just want to say, like, I'm so proud of us that we're here and how far we've been able to move. And sometimes it feels like we have so much work to do, but like where we started to where we are now, it's been a great journey so far. And I really just like that what you said about co-creating and how do we look at our families and our students especially as they enter our system from an asset-based mindset of what they bring to our district, to our classroom versus a deficit, right? Like they need X, Y, Z, but yes, they need that, but they also bring like so much richness of culture or identity or many of things that they can provide, and making sure that we're capitalizing on that and not like disregarding that, because it makes our district more richer and our students have a better experience. So I really appreciate that, and just thinking about how do we change that mindset of all of us of looking at that asset base, especially with our students, empowering them to know their wants, their needs, and finding that voice, because sometimes the system can seem so big to try to overcome that. So thank you very much for all your work and everybody who's involved in this.
Thank you, Fran. My best guess is there's maybe an hour and change left on today, which I would suggest we take a 5-minute break, or simply just want to power through it.
I just took a plane break, so I'm fine.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to do that.
Well, let's just take, because you
Yeah.
have to get up.
So we're taking a 5-minute break, legit, like just 5 minutes.
Stretch.
Everybody get up, stretch, do what you gotta do, and we'll be right back. Okay, we are back to order. The rest of our meeting is less presentation and more discussion. So if I missed you online, be sure to somehow get our attention or whatever. So our next item is the superintendent's contract. We sort of talked earlier about empowering me to do the negotiation, which is good. This feels like the thing that we would be talking about in executive session. General is probably uncomfortable as hell for Mike sitting here, but that we cannot do that. It has to be discussed in open section. We checked with our lawyer on some of this stuff. So the goal of this quick discussion is just to get feedback, not to discuss specific numbers. I'm delegated with the task of bringing a contract back to you, and this is your chance to give me feedback on the process. Brian Hungerford, our legal counsel, and I are working with Mike's representative, and we're looking for a little bit of guidance as to what the rest of the board would expect. Do we want to be competitive? So for example, do we want to be competitive with other districts approximately our size? What do we want to focus on? What would be our typical guiding principles? I think most of our licensed staff and now tech administrator are roughly 7% increases. Do we want to look at something like that? So what do people have ideas of what our sort of guiding principles are? We know Mike's the best superintendent in the state. I would suggest we should be the highest paid, but that's probably not going to be how it goes.
What's not real?
So now's your chance to give me feedback before Brian and I bring a specific package back to y'all. For reference, the last time this was done, I think it was Lisa, and we are the 4th largest school district in the state. And at that point, 3 years ago, Mike was the 11th. So I mean, 11th out of 197 isn't bad, but it's also not commensurate with being 4th. So.
Mark, I do have a question with regard to, I almost feel like your question is actually a cart before the horse. Perhaps the horse I want to know about is what is our budget and what are our options? And then I can ask the question about, do I think we're on the right way and what we want to do with this contract?
Or maybe talk about what we did last time, like what was the changes to the contract last time? What was the increase, maybe percentage wise, so we know that I think there was also some like creative things that we allowed in the contract that maybe we couldn't do that monetary compensation to the level that we wanted to, but we did other things to kind of.
Yeah, I remember there was like retirement benefit thing that we did.
Exactly. So then this brings me, so this is another reason why I would want to know what what are the options? How far can we go? What's the maximum that we can afford so that we know where to stay in terms of the contract? And then, of course, that would guide what other creative measures we might have to take to get him where we want him to be. Does that make sense? I feel blind because I don't know what the budget is for that.
Previously, it's sort of like in bargaining where you kind of discuss some different options and then bring it back and make sure that those things are feasible, right? So kind of like in bargaining, how you like have an offer and a counter offer. It's a similar sort of process, but then before it comes back to the whole board, you check with the chief financial officer to figure out, are we within the parameters that we should be in?
Do we have access to the previous contract, maybe in our files?
So what I'm hearing is people would, rather than discuss guiding principles today, you would like to seek more information. We'll do this on a different.
I think
I
that
guiding principles, right?
Okay.
What is it?
You go first, but
Right. Okay, all I was saying is that we have 2 new board members that weren't part of this process before. So I think giving them some access to information so that they can get a little bit of context of where we were last time, and then having that conversation.
I mean,
so just for what it's worth, we don't have a meeting in July. So the timeline of, I think we would like to have the new contract in place before summer recess, which means I guess we theoretically still have time where we can try to find more information, make it available to you, discuss guiding principles at the last meeting in May, and I could bring you back a contract in June. Is that what we're hearing?
Yes, maybe when we talk about guiding principles, maybe.
well, I'm trying to understand, and are we restricted to only doing that here? If we restrict ourselves to only a board meeting, we are running out of time for the end of the school year.
Yeah, work on the board is done in public. Yeah, this is the only time we get to do it. Yeah.
No, I get that. So what you're telling me is that we're running out of time. And what I'm asking for is more information. So
Okay.
Is there a way to get me more information? Maybe that's a bad question. I take it back.
Lisa, you said you might have some suggestions.
Right, and I have guiding principles, but I also think that it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. Like we can talk about
Sure.
some of the things that we are interested in guiding these negotiations, and also work on getting that more specific information set out, like in an update, like what those things can happen.
Yeah, I think some of the information that you guys are seeking could be board update material. I guess so. My sort of thought is we want to be competitive,
Absolutely, yeah.
right?
So,
I mean, it feels like that's something we could sort of all agree on, maybe.
right. One of the things that I think is really important and that we discussed last time around and is still true is that we're really fortunate to have a continuing superintendent for a number of years consecutively, which most districts don't have. And that's incredibly valuable to have that institutional memory and that knowledge of our district, and the learning curve for a new superintendent when that eventually happens, since Mike's not immortal and probably wants to retire at some point, and not really soon, I hope. So we need to be prepared for that. But for example, looking at Beaverton, who's had to replace a few superintendents since I've been on the board, each time that package balloons, right? Because in order to attract that talent, you're paying much more than you were paying your experienced superintendent. And so I think that's something for us to be aware of. And that knowledge is really valuable. So
And we did in our bargaining agreements just reward longevity for both licensed and classified staff. So I feel like rewarding longevity is a thing we do around here. So that could be one of our guiding principles, I think.
I think that there's I think the number that I keep hearing was like, there's a turnover of between like 2 to 3 years for superintendents. And how long has Mike been with us?
I think the letter said 13th year. Right?
So that's something that
Seems longer.
I definitely agree on that guiding principle is just the commitment, and it also provides continuity to the work that we're doing. Like I said earlier today, like remember where we were, 5 years ago on this work, and if we have a change in leadership and change in you know, as us as elected, everything kind of gets thrown up in the air again and reshuffled. So just having that continuity is really great for our organization because we are on the same page of like where we're headed, and like keeping that is really important. So I definitely feel like that's something that I think should be part of our and appreciating that in our district.
That's good. Anybody, Monique, Sheehan, anything to add?
No, I don't have anything to add. I had the same questions and concerns that Nancy did. Thank you.
So I think, Sheehan, did she have something?
We can't hear you, Shun. Still can't hear you.
She turned off her amazing microphone.
She did. There she goes.
You said connect to me, maybe?
It's just it.
So Mark, what's the preference? I think the guiding principles,
Yeah,
we could definitely walk through those, absolutely. Anything else?
I think Lisa's right. Like, I think.
Okay, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Excellent. So I know, and maybe I'm missing something, but I know we keep referring to these guiding principles. Do we have that documented somewhere and available to us to review?
No, this is what we're discussing right now, or what I was hoping to discuss tonight was some guiding principles from the board as I work with Mike's representative and our lawyer to come up with a package to bring back to you all.
Got it. And in previous times that we've done this, we haven't documented what the guiding principles were then, I'm assuming.
And just kind of like bargaining, you know, like I was on the bargaining and I took all of your input to go there. We're charging Mark to go take our input to work with our attorney to draft up this contract.
Right, with the client sitting here.
Right.
And I know. And that's the reality of this type of bargaining, and I understand that.
It is true.
I think we can all agree about the competitiveness. It's interesting that you said before that he was number 11.
3 years ago, or I'm not sure if that was before or after the contract. That was.
Okay. And I know that we're the number 4 size wise.
Yeah.
We didn't get up to number 4 though, but even if that was before, like, that didn't mean something,
I don't
but it
think we
wasn't a
got.
lot.
I don't think we got to number 4.
We're close.
We're close. Yeah.
What do you mean number 4?
We did not make Mike the 4th highest paid superintendent in the state.
No, but we are the 4th largest.
Yeah,
That's what I'm referring to.
So yes, but he started out the last negotiation session at around the 11th highest paid, and we got closer, but we didn't get all the way to 4.
Okay. So in part of those guidelines, could it be to get?
Yes, I think evaluating the superintendent pay for districts roughly our size is a reasonable guiding principle as well.
And that's something that we use in our union bargaining as well.
Right.
It's brought up a lot. It's like competitiveness against other districts and seeing maybe where we landed in our bargaining with our unions and also seeing like what does that sit in comparison. That would be really great for you to look at that.
Like, for example, if there's a percentage that could be described as a salary increase, if that could be reduced to a percentage increase, that's good to know, both for classified and unclassified, because then that also gives us a data point in negotiating this contract. I hate to say it, but it looks like more work. Is it more work for you, or is it more work for HR? I'm not sure.
I think Brian probably will do
Yeah, yes, a lot of that's going to be me and Brian. So what I would suggest, if everyone's okay with it, is I will use the information we've gathered tonight to talk with Brian and Mike's representative. In the meantime, we will try to get you some information regarding where Mike currently is ranked in the state And then obviously before I would bring a number to you all, I would vet it with Michelle to make sure that it meets our budgetary requirements. So I think we could be able to bring something forward next. So our final knowledge, does anybody remember the procedure? Do we bring it back and vote on it that night, or do we discuss it, have feedback, and vote on the subsequent one? Okay, so the plan was to vote on the contract and read the letter next week. So I don't think that's out of the question, as long as we bring, if me, Brian, my representative, can come to some tentative agreement, I think I could bring that back. Unless there's some serious objection, we may be able to approve that next week. Does that seem like, just head nods, that seem pretty reasonable?
Yeah.
All right. I knew this was going to be incredibly uncomfortable, and it was. But we'll move on to the next item.
Never referred to you as a client.
In your packet, we have the questions we've used in the past. These are the questions we've used in the past, right?
Yes.
So as everyone knows, Yadira's is leaving us. Like break news or whatever, but like, can we talk about it? Well, I'm about to. Can we talk about your planning to go to the Northwest Regional ESD?
I don't see why not.
Okay. It felt like it was okay. So, so yes, she will be moving on to join the board of the Northwest Regional ESD, and we have to replace her seat. And so the agenda item tonight was to discuss the questions that we would ask the candidates that we would talk to in person. And I believe these are the ones we've used in the past. So we'll begin with that agenda item about people having, is there any feedback on the questions that we have in our packet?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I just saw, and I feel like question number 3 seems a little outdated, especially I think there's maybe having Fran help us a little bit wordsmith our questions with an equity lens and ensuring that it's a little bit more like up to par where we are now.
Yeah. Other feedback?
Erica, what? Sorry, I it was hard to hear Erica. Erica, what question were you referring to?
Number 3.
Okay,
Well,
thank
really,
you.
Number 3 and number 6, but I think all of them could use a little bit of a, like, just looking at it and seeing if there's ways to ensure that we're getting to what we're wanting to hear around our candidates and how they look at diversity, equity, and inclusion.
So for reference, we sort of did this with this, you saw the recommendations for the student representatives. We tried to standardize the set of questions that we pose to the various candidates so that it's not like we're trying to bias or favor any one of them specifically. So yeah, part of the idea here is to make it standardized to some degree. And I think we've asked follow-ups based on something someone says, but essentially we will be an open session. And what we've done in the past was sort of standardize all of the questions so that every candidate had opportunity to address the exact same information. So I suppose we can start with that. Is that still a goal? It feels like that's a good goal with me. So we still feel like we should have a standard set of questions for everyone?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did we ask all 9 questions last time?
I think we just asked the 6. I think my recollection, it's been a while. How long have you been with us?
4 years.
4 years, right? So 4 years, and I was brand new at the time, right? So my recollection is that the 6 board members each asked one question, and we had the supplemental ones, maybe in case we had a tie and we wanted to discuss more with them.
We wouldn't have had time to do all this.
Yeah.
That's a lot of questions. Because that typically, when Kona's doing like administrative interviews, 9 or 10 questions is about an hour.
How much time did we give for each one? 30? No, more than that.
Probably I think the re-looking at the questions and maybe condensing a little bit will be helpful because we might, 30 even seems like a lot of time.
It is
Probably 15 minutes per applicant, yeah. So thinking
15 minutes?
Yeah.
For an interview?
Because depending on how many we have.
Even if we had 9, there's no way that we could do this adequately with 15 minutes each. No way. I'm sorry.
I agree with Nancy. When we were apart, we recently did the student rep interviews, which were 15 minutes, and it is an incredibly short amount of time. And given that this is a very, very important board position, I would think at least 30 minutes would be my preference. That being said, with the questions itself, I do like, or I would propose that we move question 8 to one of the questions that we would ask instead of it being a supplemental question, and potentially think about removing question number 2.
It was a hot button topic at the time, wasn't it? Yeah, that phrase over and over, hammering that phrase over and over. I still like it though.
Nancy, or actually,
Yeah, Monique has something. You want to go first or?
no.
Okay, Monique.
Yep, I agree. I think the questions should be revisited. I also had concerns about 2, 3, and 6. So I am definitely in favor of reviewing these. And I also agree with Shyam and Nancy that we need more time. The window is closed for applications, correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
So we have that fixed number. I think it was 4.
Correct.
What we're looking at.
Yes.
Are we looking to narrow that down before we interview, or are we planning on interviewing all 4?
Last time we had a big turnout, and I think we had like probably over 12 applications, I want to say.
Right.
And so what we did is we did a first round of looking at the applications and did like a voting, and then we narrowed it down to like our top 5 or something like that.
I think our plan was to interview 5 and then one person dropped out, so we only interviewed 4.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And in this case, we only have how many?
4. Currently 4.
So it makes sense to me to interview everyone. I can't imagine why we would.
So to backtrack, Nancy's right. I don't think that it's enough time, 15 minutes. So I agree.
Yeah, 30 minutes.
I agree with Nancy that 15 minutes is not enough time. I think 30 minutes would be great. I also agree with Sheehan that question 8 should be one of our main questions. I disagree with removing question number 2 because funding for public education in Oregon has been an issue my entire life as someone who's 37 years old. I don't think that is going to go away anytime soon. And that is one of our main jobs in normal real life when we're not in a pandemic is lobbying. So I don't think getting rid of question 2 is a good idea. I think that we could probably smush and wordsmith some of the other questions so that we can make some of that work. And yeah, so I think the questions can be support, but I don't want to get rid of 2. And then also, I guess, is this the time to express, yeah, I have concern about the number of applicants that we have. This is, as she and I think said, really important, with appointing a board member. And I have a lot of concern about only having a pool of 4 applicants for that position. I think that it would be wise for us to slow down and take a little bit of time. We're not in a rush. We're not missing a quorum of board members, and I'd like to reopen the application process and allow folks a little bit more time so we have a wider pool of people. I just don't think 4 is enough possibly to adequately represent what we would hope to get. Just like when you're hiring for a job, right? I'm sure that you guys do this in HR. Sometimes you don't have enough people apply. You reopen to expand your candidate pool, right? I think we have time to do that. So.
Lisa, I like what you're saying. But let me ask from an HR, not HR perspective, but Rose, did we have any applications that came in after the deadline? No, that would have told me that we had more, or maybe there were more.
Yeah, so I
So
feel
that
like
was
we
it? I
can
mean-
sort of table the discussion a little bit about the questions and discuss possibly
Yeah.
reopening. Does anybody have anything they want to add on the idea of maybe extending the deadline for candidacy?
I think that last time when we had a bigger pool, it definitely, I think it was just, like, well, we got a Madeira, so that was amazing. But I think it was just it made it so that we were able to really discuss varying viewpoints across our community and getting more people to be able to interview. And I feel like, I know there's also an election going on right now, so that may be very distracting to people that civically engage to participate in this. So this process is really our own as a board. Like, we get to decide how to do this process, and we're gonna be with this next person probably, for a longer time, or hopefully. And so I really, if we're not in a huge
The term
rush.
is only 1 year.
Right, but they
Just around-
usually,
yes.
they usually run again, right? So I feel like if we have the time, it doesn't, it's only positive to open it up longer and maybe potentially get a larger pool. So I don't really see a downside of opening it longer. I feel like the people that submitted applications, they're still interested, they're still gonna, we're still gonna do that. And I don't know, I feel like it's a positive thing for us to try to do a little bit more outreach.
For what it's worth, I'm comfortable looking forward with the people who've expressed interest. I don't love the message it sends a little bit for the current candidates. So
it's true.
So I also think we're in a situation where the politicization of school boards is a thing. And I think we may be seeing some of the reluctance of people willing to stick their head up because it might get chopped off or thrown tomatoes at it. So what I wouldn't want is for us to open it up and not get anybody else. So we're just delaying for the sake of delay. So there's a myriad of reasons. My preference would be to just continue with the 4 applicants we have. Sheehan, you have your hand up?
So I'm not completely opposed to opening up the application process again. And my only worry forward, and at what point would at what number would it be an adequate number of applicants for us to not ever revisit this again? And so I guess a question to that is, have we ever in our history of considering board appointments through this manner, have we ever delayed the application process because we had too few candidates? And if so, what was that number in the past?
We've done it for CCAC and budget, but I feel like those aren't that analogous to this. So how often have we?
I believe this is, I'm thinking in 13 years, this is the 3rd time we've done a replacement process like this, and we haven't delayed. I will say we've also had more applicants those other 2 times.
We have, and then also the process is very flexible, unlike a lot of the other things. Like, I think the process for budget committee has more rules, which is interesting. So
there's membership or there's
right. So I think, we do have the flexibility, and I think that's a great question too. What number would be enough? And I don't know. It just doesn't feel like 4 is it. Like the Supreme Court ruling on like what's inappropriate. I'll know it when I see it. But I think I would feel more comfortable if we did reopen and spend a little bit more time inviting folks. And then maybe Mark's right. Maybe it is an indicator that folks aren't interested in the position because of what's been happening around the country. And then we'll know that, right? But again, we're not in a rush. And I think
I'm not rushed, but I don't love the seat being open. for too long.
Sure,
And I would
it's been
say,
open for longer though, also
Yeah.
in the past. So I'm not real worried about that. I don't think we need to delay it for a long time, give ourselves a couple more weeks or something. And there is no harm done. And I also agree, I heard Lisa Nancy, it could be misconstrued, but it's not about who we have, it's about that we only have 4 people. We have 3 times as many people apply when Mira was appointed. It's just, I feel like we maybe missed the mark in communication somewhere, and I'd like to give us a second
I
shot
agree
at
with you. Except that, Mark, that's what, when I say I agree with you, meaning that we could possibly get more people, you're right. But if I were in that original 4 pool and I did the right thing, I met the deadline and I applied, I would be absolutely furious. And it wouldn't be the first time in my life that I had that same experience because somebody decided they wanted a bigger applicant pool.
Happened to me too.
With, yes, so with that in mind, I'm thinking, I don't like the idea of extending it. Just because if we got the people who are interested, if you told me that we only had this out for 2 weeks, I would be right there with you. If you told me it was only open for 3 weeks, I'd be right there with you, but that wasn't the case. This was known for quite some time. And I don't know, if I were one of those 4 and then we delayed and opened this up again, I would not be happy. And given the color of my skin, I would have all kinds of allegations as to the reason why that happened. And I'm just being honest.
anecdotally, I would say, it's not data, but there are 3 people who I thought would be excellent candidates that I spoke to, and they
did not.
Well, they didn't tell me no on the phone, but we didn't get their application. So I don't know who I would call next.
Right. I think there's a reason why question 6 about community engagement and outreach was on the list last time. And the reason is that we are still learning and perfecting our ability to communicate with our community. And we have a lot of tools like social media and hot news, and that's great. We also have some tools that I don't think we used. You know, with that huge list of packs that Fran had on her slide, I doubt that we share that information with all of those folks. The way I get my primary communication is the remind thread from my children's school. I didn't get anything on that. That would have been helpful. So I think that there are more tools that we could use to engage with more folks. And again, there's no harm in trying that for a couple of weeks. Maybe we don't get more people. Great, we've got 4 people who want to be involved. Let's talk to them. Maybe we get to talk to more. And why is that a bad thing?
For what it's worth, that makes me a little bit nervous. So I think if we're going, it's on us. It's on board members and the community to ask our cabinet members or our departments to try to recruit their boss's boss. It feels a little like Mike could just go get somebody who loves Mike and just suggest that person be on. So like Mike probably would not feel comfortable recruiting people for the board because he's recruiting for his boss. So you're suggesting that we use more of the departmental resources that we have.
I'm suggesting we communicate to a broader audience more directly as opposed to a passive social media post.
Yeah, and I would agree that it's not about having staff go out and recruit, but actually just utilizing our tools to communicate, hey, we have this opening, and ensuring that we're using all the tools that we have to communicate that message. The other thing I would like to advocate for is if we do decide to extend this, it would be great if we could have like either like a Q&A time, which we've done before when we're about to have elections, where if people from the community have questions about what it's like to be a board member, what is your role and responsibility, maybe we can have a couple of us either, which we do, that's something that we've done in practice before. It's just, during the pandemic, we didn't do that. But where people have an opportunity to just ask if they're interested in being a board member, like what do you do and what's the time commitment? Just having an opportunity to ask questions, just like the student reps get to ask previous student reps about their experience on the board and what do they do, something similar dynamic might be helpful.
So let me ask the question of the newbie in the room. Why are we treating this position different than one that we just ran for last year? I feel like we're treating it differently. Nobody asked me those questions.
But we did have a session that you could have attended in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And there's no holding.
during the election cycle, we commonly hold sessions, well, best department holds sessions about what it's like to be a board member. And I don't know if it was as prominent during COVID, because normally it would be in this room or whatever. Yeah.
I don't know, I just find it interesting, we're asking these very specific questions and would even consider an equity question, which nobody asked when we were.
So I think it's a difference between a public election and an appointment by the board.
I'm with you 100%, there is a difference, it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, the person is gonna be selected, not elected.
Right, so like when you're out, I feel like when you're out campaigning, you get to promote whatever messages you want about yourself. And now we get to select someone that just automatically gets to have a seat here. And we are kind of doing that, those questioning and vetting that they didn't have to do in an open election process. To get voted yes or no.
We end up with the here last. Monique, you have something?
Yes, I agree with you, Mark. I don't see, I think there's some pros and cons in extending this. And I think we had this discussion, I don't know, it was October or November, sometime around about CCAC, and we had this whole pool of candidates, and it was determined not diverse enough, and we extended it, if I recall correctly. And I feel like it's a disservice to the people who have met the deadline and who are interested in this position, that we should hold to the deadline and move forward.
Yeah, I don't want to mischaracterize what I'm saying. I don't know that either way is right or wrong. I just have my sort of preference. And really, whatever we sort of decide as a group, I'm okay endorsing that 100%. So.
Right. No, I understand what you're saying. And like I said, there are pros and cons.
Yes, there are. Yeah. And my concern is if it comes outweigh the pros, but I can also see some upside as well. So, but Beth, do you feel like you have more tools at your disposal that are still in the tool shed?
Well, I mean, I guess it comes down to what people feel is most effective. I mean, the tools at my disposal are kind of those mass communication tools, right? I mean, it goes out to everybody and the social media, and I know that the whole thing was covered by local media who interviewed you separately. I mean, it was in our local papers. So beyond just the school district, for example. And a lot of what we do is make consistent information available so that it is there for others to then pick up the ball and run with it if they have other venues or avenues that they want to explore. I think, you know, me at my level, I can only do so much. I mean, could I push a message to everybody's phone? Yes. But sometimes it's, regardless of how direct it is, not everybody knows me. You know what I mean? And it's more about those personal touches or the people that are closer with the folks. So, you know, I
feel before we get down to the nuance of like what we would do, we first need to kind of decide whether we want to move forward, and then we can have a conversation.
What we would do sort of impacts whether or not we just, if there's nothing else to do, then the answer is no, we don't do it.
Well, we can't. Well, then let me ask this, is it inappropriate for us to do an informal vote?
I think I would prefer somebody make a motion.
I'm ready to make a motion.
I say we do that. Thank you.
I'd like to know what, I'm writing my wording down, but do we need a date? We don't want to go until such and such a date, and maybe Rose can share with us what would the date be, or do we not need a date in the motion?
I would prefer to have a date.
I think I'd prefer to have a date in the motion because the original opening had a date. I think the timeline, so you all have the timeline in front of you. So the idea would have been at the next board meeting, we would have discussed what we had hoped to have 15 people and figure out what 5 we wanted to interview. So I guess we sort of need to even revisit, is that going to be our plan? If we get another 10, are we interviewing 14?
Usually we decide.
Ensure the 4 that already applied are interviewed, like that.
Okay. So then I think that what would make sense is picking a date for our June 21st meeting, so that we have that information about, do we have other folks on June 21st? we can discuss at that time, if we have more, what that needs to look like, and then we can push it for about a month. Maybe that means having a separate meeting in July for the interview at a point if necessary. Pushing that to the retreat day if we think that's better.
So can I ask you a question about that before you make your motion? So, so you would say we wouldn't be aiming at the June 21st date to make a decision?
I don't think but because the next meeting is 2 weeks from today.
Right.
And so if we're talking about extending by 2 weeks, I don't know if that would fit.
We currently don't have a July meeting on the books. That'll be a little tricky to.
I don't want to discount how cumbersome that is for staff.
At this point. But the retreat in August is really early. Do you remember the date?
I think it's August 2nd.
Is it?
It's like the first or second.
First, second week, right? Or
No, first or second day.
August 2nd.
August
The day
2nd.
they have planned.
So if we did push it, then we could be prepared to do interviews in August. We would need to make decisions in June regarding who we were going to interview. That's right.
Feels right-ish.
Yeah, and at the June board meeting is when we would decide who our interview pool would be. And then at the August meeting, we would do the
Interviews at
interview.
So I would like to have Lisa put her.
I'm working on it. I just want to make sure.
No, I'm with
Got
you. Yes, I agree. I'm with you.
So then
I do feel like if you're gonna go this route though, that it probably does make sense for at least a couple of you to commit to a day that there could be an online forum for Q&A. Because if you're gonna add something new to the mix and hope for a different outcome, or hope for a different outcome, you do need to probably add some different things to the mix is what I meant to say.
So Rose, if we said the 18th of June, which is a Wednesday, if we said yes to that, would that be enough time to get the information in the packet for the 24th meeting? Yes, okay. Okay, I'm ready for a motion. Are you ready for a motion?
Sorry, May,
June 18th.
June 18th. So
You're saying applications due by June 18th?
Yeah, because then we have the next
no,
meeting, June 24th.
June 15th,
15th.
because that's a Wednesday. I have a packet out to you on Thursday, the
Thursday,
16th.
exactly, for the next
So
Tuesday.
the 20.
15th.
So we have
Oh,
access
it's
to
21st, not 24th. I'm looking at
4
June
now,
things.
right?
Yeah.
We all have access to the 4 already,
Yes.
right?
Yes. So June 15th would be a good closing date, so that I could get the information to you on the 16th with the packet and be in compliance.
Perfect. Okay, you ready, Chair Watson? Okay, I'd like to make a motion, and I move that we reopen the application window for the board appointment until June 15th, 2022.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Allen and seconded by Director Lopez that the board reopen the application process until June 15th, 2022, to receive applications until June 15th, 2022. Is there any further discussion?
All I want to say is it's a great conversation. We all want the best outcomes for somebody to join our group. I think the work that we do is great. So regardless of how everybody goes there, like you said, there's pros and cons to either one. And we're just trying to do the best that we think, what we think personally is the best option. So no hard feelings.
Other comments before we vote? Other discussion? When we get you turn your camera back on, do you have something you want to add?
Sorry, was that, did you ask me?
No, just more, is there any further discussion before we vote? Yeah, I think everyone has good in their heart and the best of intentions. And I'm happy for us to do whatever the majority of the board thinks is right. I do worry that the downside outweighs the upside, but that's just me. So,
Mark, if I could say
anybody
one thing.
else?
Can I say one thing?
What's that?
Could I just say one thing?
Yes. Yeah, okay.
In
We're
speaking to the-
we're in discussion for board member voting. Is this appropriate? Okay, all right.
Well, it's odd.
Wouldn't it have
We've
been-
never had a
wouldn't it have been
non-board
like-
person come in and say, right,
Okay.
that's what I mean.
But between the motion and the, okay, go for it.
No, it's okay.
No, go for it.
I just want to say with the hacks that we have been going to and talking to you about budget, CCAC, And with this, there has not been any interest, and I just wouldn't feel right with you voting with knowing, not knowing that information. I've sat here with wanting to say something. So I just want you to know that information as you go.
So you feel like we're discussion. So you feel like the PACs are fully aware of the opportunity and no one has decided to step forward?
What I'm saying is that with CCAC and Budget Committee, in my experience with them this year, there has not been interest. I've been able to gather 2 people, and I go to every meeting for all the work that we've been doing. So board might be different, but I'm just saying from my experience with CCAC and trying to get people in, and with the Budget Committee, there has been very limited interest.
You can't guarantee you're going to get interest out of that group, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
And it was an example. I don't think it's the only example. There's the Washington County Future Leaders, right? There's the City of Hillsboro Civic. There's all these different things that I don't think that we've tried, and I would be happy to brainstorm this ideas. But I think that it's not, in my opinion, it's not good enough to say, oh, we didn't get a lot of people. That must be all that we can do. It's very defeatist. If you didn't get the outcome you want, it means you missed something, and you need to try again, try better, and try harder. And that's what we should do. 4 people is not enough for a board appointment for the 4th largest school district in the state.
I would disagree that we didn't get the outcome we want. People were interested in applying, but okay.
And I don't know, I am a Washington County leadership graduate from the inaugural cohort. And it has always been difficult to get involved. You have to make serious steps to get involved. I don't know. I think we should vote on it. And I'm in 100% what the majority decides.
We're heading that way.
Thank you, Francesca.
Is there any further discussion on the motion on the table? All right, Rose, can you call the roll, please?
Lisa Allen. Aye. Sheehan Kim.
Nay.
Erica Lopez.
Aye.
Yadira Martinez. Aye. Monique Ward.
Opposed?
Nancy Thomas.
Opposed.
Mark Watson.
No. The motion does not carry. So, how would we like to address creating a new set of questions?
I just think we need to go back and fix the question.
Would it be helpful to just give us categories that you want questions generated from, and then we can wordsmith it? So like if you want a question on funding, if you want a question on,
sure,
and then we can send some out to you. Would that be easier than trying to fix these?
Yeah. I don't know that we need to wordsmith an open session.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I guess procedurally, are we okay with the idea that we'll give the staff some guiding principles, Mike and with Francesca's help, and then share them? So if we're not reopening, are we sticking to the timeline where we say who we interview next time and it's 4? So
I would advocate that we.
So at that point, really just in the 24th, on the 24th, we would just, so that we can maybe distribute some possible questions in a board update and then discuss them on the 24th.
The 24th says we will finalize the interview questions. So that's part of, that's part of the plan already.
Okay.
So we're not behind.
So we can get just a board update with the rewording of the question.
Yeah, sure.
So we can provide feedback. I think that'll be great. And I think on the timeline, it says that we get to identify our top 3.
I think.
Well, I think that's when we thought there was like gonna be a ton of people.
Well, I think so in the past, we've used, when we had, say, 12 or 15, everybody picked 3, we did the math on who everybody picked, and then that was how we figured out who the 5 were. So we also determined how many people we would interview, and then we used the top 3 ranking to figure out which ones we would do. So I guess, so we'll go back to that. Well, we can discuss this on 24th. So one of the jobs on 24th will be to determine how many candidates we are going to interview. And one of the jobs will be to determine what the questions will be. So I guess to your point about guiding themes, I think, I don't want wordsmith an open session, but I mean, like, number one feels like the logical number one, right? No, everybody kind of okay with number one? And then, yeah, so after that, demonstrating some information about having budget funding be a topic somehow, I think that's a good idea. Erica's idea about something illustrating their position on diversity, equity, inclusion is a good idea. Other sort of topics we would want to make sure to hear from a prospective board member on.
I think that Lisa had mentioned like lobbying, that's really a lot of our work that we do in advocacy. And so like maybe asking about their either experience or maybe their, even if it's not specifically like lobbying, but like championing an issue or something.
Involvement in other levels of government and whatever. Yeah, I can get behind that, sure.
Would you want lobbying or advocacy / lobbying, would you want that separate from funding? Or would you want it?
I personally want separate funding, yeah.
I think funding or like budget or like something around our financial, like understanding school.
Right, something that gives a person an opportunity to illustrate that they've at least watched a board meeting before. Like that they understand the challenges Oregon's, like Lisa said, it's her entire life, the challenges of funding schools in Oregon. Yeah, I don't love question 5 all that much because it's a lot of I was completely we.
I will say, it does give you insight into what they actually understand what the job is.
That's pretty good.
Because generally what people think their priorities aren't actually aspects of board work.
That's fair.
Point. Yeah, that's a good point.
I think there are a few things I probably campaigned on and got in the job and went, oh, that's like a state level issue. So, which probably led me to advocacy.
That being said, like also it feels, it's not intended to be a trick question.
Sure.
And I probably shouldn't have said that, so.
One of the main things that board members do is policy. Do you want anything on policy, or is that something that people just wouldn't be aware of until they get into this?
It might be part of what the answer and priorities might be around policy. I think 2 and 6 can be reworded. Sorry, 3 and 6 can be reworded.
So feedback focus.
With a specific idea focus, especially around the work that we're doing.
So does this mean that we will or will not offer some type of digital meeting where they can ask questions about being a board member?
We won't.
So we're not gonna do that, okay.
Probably should have.
And I was just about to say, why wouldn't we? Or we don't.
Only the opportunity to reopen the window so we can right our wrongs.
If only.
You guys wanna vote again?
Well put, Lisa, well.
Do you have enough?
We've got 4 categories so far.
I want to keep question
after-
9 in there.
Are we after 6 questions, 1 per board member?
Yeah, I
I
don't know.
think
But
she had also recommended number 8 to be
Oh,
a
yeah.
question instead
Elevated,
of
right.
Yep,
supplemental.
I didn't have that one.
Yeah.
Okay, that's 5. And then you said 9.
Yes, I think 9 is important to ask. It might be the one.
Sorry, I had a quick, I did. Sorry, I'm having some audio and video issues here. One thing I wanted to mention was around the advocacy or lobbying question. And then Mike, when you brought up the policy question, I think that those two can potentially be combined to see if people have experience in, any of those core categories that board members do engage in. If we're going to have a specific one called out for advocacy and lobbying, I think we should also have a specific one called out for policy. But to the extent that we want to combine them, I would vote in favor of that. And then, yes, to what someone just mentioned, I would like to put another plug for making question number 8 one of the core questions.
Okay,
everybody.
So how many questions would that be?
I think we've got 6. So First one would be question number 1. Second one would be around funding and budget. Third one would be some type of DEI question, probably a combination of questions 3 and 6. Number 4 would be an advocacy question and talk about lobbying policy, lobbying and policy and just advocacy. Number 5 would be current question number 8. And number 6 would be current question number 9.
Do we need both question 1 and question 9?
Yeah, I was gonna say, is question 1 and also is question 1 more like something that was already in the initial application?
So to answer the question, no, I don't think you need 1 and 9, and I would go with the majority on which one you think is the better question. But I now see what you're saying. We don't need both, one or the other.
That's probably in there in the application, but I do like hearing it. Like I legit had no idea who I was gonna vote for when we got here for Yadira's appointment, and you were so impressive in your interview. I'm like, clearly that's the answer. Like it was, and we had a tremendous applicant pool. No disrespect to any of the other candidates, but like your interview convinced me you were absolutely 100% right person. So I like, given a
It's
chance.
not that I was meeting yet, relax.
We are not at that one yet.
I don't have my words prepared.
Right. So yeah, giving them a chance to sort of say, this is why me. I think it's good. Yeah.
So can we make question number 9, question number 1? That work? Because it's just worded a little differently.
I think there's only 5. I don't feel a need to ask one. So.
Can we words?
And 30 minutes each, right?
Can we take out a you from 9? Like, why are you? Why do you are?
We're not wordsmithing right now.
I know, sorry. Just a lot of these.
So
A lot of eyes.
So if we have 6 questions and we know we're doing 30 minutes, then I wanted to then ask for one more confirmation. Do you guys do it where you give the candidates the questions in advance?
Yeah.
And how far in advance?
Did you just advance? Or did you
I think we made it public when we signed up on the questions.
Yeah,
that's part of the package.
They're in the packet. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're in the public packet, and you wouldn't want, just for what it's worth, we're doing it in open work session. So you can request that whoever's going forth not sit in on 1, 2, 3, but they can. So I don't know that I want to like secretly disadvantage somebody who did not have a question.
Yeah.
So, but then doesn't it make sense that each one comes into the room for their 30 minutes and then they leave for the other?
We can't make it. It's a public meeting. We can't make it.
Because it's a public meeting.
I think they did last, we asked them and they did last.
We asked them and they did, but we can't make them.
Can you tell where my hand is?
Yeah, we can ask them to respect the process and not sit on other people's, but we can't make it. Yeah.
I can make one.
That's a completely different issue.
You guys gave us the option of sitting in here while you guys were.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
During the debate, during the
I chose
decision.
not to.
Yes, we did do that, right? Do we need to decide that on the 24th?
I think
It's open meeting. They can come in if they want, right?
I think it would be nice if we can have an area or room, or maybe we have something for them so they can sit in and kind of wait.
You know what?
If they want to.
I agree with that. And we can put them in a different room and they can watch the deliberations. But I don't think it's fair for them to see.
But they can come in.
Some snacks and tea.
We can't stop.
Yeah, we can.
We can't stop them, but we can make it so that there's something else for them to do.
Yeah.
It's not able to do meeting laws while the live stream.
One of the meeting last year. Yeah, somebody, and if
And
they
then
want
that
to
way
sit
it's
in the gallery while we discuss their candidacy, they're welcome to do so.
Yeah. I just think that
We do a lot of things that are awkward, like the discussion we just had, so it's part of the job.
Do we want to like just say right now that we're going to interview all 4 because we only have 4 then, or?
I feel like we can make the call next time, but it feels like that. I mean, that's probably where I would head myself. I can't.
Just for planning of the agenda.
Yeah, I can't imagine excluding one of the 4.
So for next time, if we have
something comes out or whatever, but.
For next time, if we have 5 questions ready to go and we have a process and a timeline put together for the next meeting for the selection, then we can all.
And share that in the board update.
Because wouldn't that be, don't we want a question for each person or?
I don't need a question, let's not manufacture one for me, just
I do.
Yeah, that's
Well,
cool.
if
But like,
there's
I could be board cherry and sort of, hey, well,
Okay.
here,
Yeah,
so
sure.
I don't know that I
You
need
can
to,
introduce them to the-
yeah, if we want to ask 6, I'm happy to
No,
ask
it's
them, but I don't know that I need.
So maybe we could get more quote unquote cooperation if we say upfront that each person will be interviewed, but you could live stream watch everybody else's interview. You could ask.
I think we should discourage it because it
Yeah.
does give an advantage. Like if I know what all the other people interviewed for my job have said, then I can.
I agree, but you're telling me that this is a public meeting and I just think
Well,
that's.
but what we did last time, I don't think they did sit in. I think, they're.
They didn't, and there wasn't a live stream requirement.
Yeah, it wasn't, but.
Good point.
I think they'll be, I mean,
We'll see how. it goes.
Does the whole thing have to be?
Yeah, most people are really nice about the process. and Cordial.
Wasn't helpful.
Yeah.
He's like, Nancy, get over yourself. Okay.
Anything else on this particular topic? All right.
Sorry.
Our next topic is just a preliminary discussion on board leadership planning. So despite how I feel right now, I will probably be interested in continuing as board chair next time. So unless if there's somebody else really wants the job, you could say so and we can discuss it. So this is the opportunity to discuss whether or not you would be interested in a board leadership role. Nancy, I don't know, do you want to continue as vice chair? I don't know.
I
how you feel
absolutely
about
would
that.
like to
Yeah.
continue as vice chair. I've enjoyed learning. This has been an incredible experience and I hope I'm not done yet, but if you choose to not have me here, I will abide by that.
And I don't know what the time constraints on your life will be, but I wasn't vice chair before I was chair, so it's not a requirement that you move from vice chair to chair. It's just something we've done in the past, but I didn't do it, so.
Yeah, and I
And it shows, doesn't it, a little bit?
I would also just encourage, like, because I know we have some people like Shannon and Monique as well that haven't done any of the roles before, but it's a great learning experience if you were considering it, especially just the time. Like you get a little bit of sense of the time commitment, of like preparing board agendas, having those meetings, and figuring out if you want to move into like vice chairmanship. But I just want to encourage even if you take a year off, you can still go and become vice chair later.
Yeah.
Or, you don't have to serve to then move into it. So whenever you want, I'm just making sure everybody gets an opportunity. We're gonna have another new person, so
Right.
building up capacity within our own, our own board members is really important, because I know, Mark, it's great that you're volunteering to do another year, but it is very time consuming and a very heavy responsibility. And so just making sure that we have people that are building up their capacity to take that role later on.
I legit had no idea. Great. Just thought it was my turn to chair.
We told people we wouldn't.
So what's Rose, when do we generally do chair and vice chair nomination? Is it the 24th?
No.
June. Okay, so so this was just to put on the agenda to get people thinking about if they want to be involved in board leadership. We can discuss some board time, or whatever, next meeting, and then in the June meeting, we'll officialize those positions. Is that it? Just after that part. All right, so we are not, we've often taken action in work sessions. It's not something we generally do, but we can. But in this particular case, we decided to adjourn the work session, convene a quick regular session to ratify the HEA contract. We're not going to move downstairs. Rose took the time to bring the flag upstairs so we can do the flag salute for our regular session. So I will adjourn the work session. All right. Do we need to do anything with the AV? No.
Right?
Right, all right.
Anybody who thought it was starting at 8?
Yeah.
Probably abandoned us a while ago.
I will call to order the regular session. We begin as we always do with the flag salute. The flag is in this corner next to me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, for your patience in getting here, but I think this is kind of worth it. Oh, we need to do another approval of the regular, all right, so we're in a regular session. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
Been moved by Director Ward and seconded by Director Lopez that we approve the agenda as printed. Is there any discussion?
Am I Director Ward?
Oh, sorry, no, Director Thomas, sorry. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition? Seeing none, motion carries. The agenda is approved. Kana, do you have something to present to us?
I do. I'm very excited to present the Hillsboro Education Association ratification agreement in our situation page. And today they voted and it passed with the union. And so we were super excited to come before you tonight to present the salary changes that we have implemented and adopted tentatively and now ratified for coming 3 years, I should say 2 years because we're in our current year. And then also just as you look through the situation page, you can see that our target for GSI, the general salary increase, is 3% over the next 3 years. And then we're also adding an additional step to our salary to make us more competitive across our metro area. And then we're also adding some longevity stipends in there in the next coming years for employees that have been with the district for 10 or more years at the top step. And then some of the stipends that we're adding in appreciation for the work that our district nurses have done, we've added a district nurse stipend, and activities coordinators will receive 5 additional days. In addition, we had a rich conversation with our union colleagues around supporting our split classroom teachers and have added a stipend for them. And then we made some adjustments to the bilingual dual language stipends to better support our dual language program teachers. And starting in the 22-23 school year, we'll be also adding a bilingual stipend for district designated languages. And at this time, we're looking at Spanish and Vietnamese to better support our diverse student population. And then all of those normal increases for eligible employees will take place in 3 years. In regards to insurance, it will be a $40 increase for each of the 3 years. And one thing that's different this year is that we won't have that go back retroactively to July 1, 2021. The new rate will be applied in June 2022. And we just have some broader changes in there that we wanted to make note of around just making changes for temporary hires. Juneteenth will be an unpaid holiday, and just a brief note around the secondary master schedule will be made available by draft on June 30th.
Mona, did you say Juneteenth is an unpaid holiday?
Yes, it is a federal, because it's a date which our teachers typically do not attend at this time.
Got it.
It's not a school day or a work day for them.
There's no 12-month licensed staff.
No.
Like they caught some on the classified side. So,
Yeah.
so it is a paid holiday for our 12-month classified.
That is correct. Do I have any questions?
If we ratify today, will we make it in time for Michelle's department to get all the retroactive pay into the pay cycle?
Yeah, for June, yes.
For June.
Yes.
So everybody gets a piece of what was agreed upon.
Correct.
Before the end of the year.
Yes, before the end of the year.
Yeah, it's retroactive to the start of this school year, right?
Yep.
So in other words, you're already ready for this.
We've been ready. This is good. Good news for everyone.
all of what Kana covered is in your situation page, general public, it's all there. Does anybody have any more questions for Kana? Okay.
I move that the Board of Directors approve the 3-year collective bargaining agreement with Hillsboro Education Association effective July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024, as tentatively agreed by the district bargaining team.
Second.
Third.
It's been moved by Director Lopez and seconded by Director Allen that the Board of Directors approve the 3-year collective bargaining agreement with Hillsboro Education Association effective July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024, as tentatively agreed to by the district bargaining team. Is there any further discussion?
Thank you to everyone. This was a great experience for me to be a part of. I really enjoyed spending time with our bargaining team, with our HEA leadership, and I really enjoyed that we got to do this hybrid this year, because especially right now, I think a lot of people, it would have been a real big struggle to make sure. And I think it also increased like just viewership. I was always looking to see how many people were able to participate. So I think that's really great. And from us as a board, I took all of your input, and especially centering around our students, centering around our DEI goals, and trying to make sure that we bring those points to the table. So I just want to make sure that you all know that I took our collective voice in doing this work. So thank you very much.
Thanks for sharing that, Erica. And I just want to say, I really appreciate the collaboration that we have with HEA and the leadership, and just the work that we were able to accomplish together. And we did it in under a year. So that I'm really proud of our efforts that we worked together on this.
Further discussion? I know HEA isn't on the official docket today, but I want to recognize and thank the current president and incoming president for being here tonight. Thank you.
Yay.
All right, Rose, can you please call the roll?
Lisa Allen.
Aye.
Sheehan Kim.
Aye.
Erica Lopez.
Aye.
Yadira Martinez.
Aye.
Monique Ward.
Aye.
Nancy Thomas.
Aye.
Mark Watson.
Aye, the motion carries. All right. There we go. All right. Probably the last thing you want to deal with right now is more talking, but sure. One of our obligations as people who attended the NSBA conference is to sort of report out about our experiences. We had Sheehan and Erica discuss it at the last meeting, so tonight is Nancy and myself. So Nancy, if you want to go ahead and share yours, then I will go last.
So don't laugh at me, but I was actually taking notes on my phone. It seemed to be the really good way for me to be in these sessions. And for obvious or not so obvious reasons, I was very interested in those sessions that had to do with some of the legal implications of what we are experiencing as a community, as a nation. And I can honestly tell you that those sessions tended to be the most highest in attendance. And I thought it was incredible. In fact, one session that I was in specifically, we asked them not to stop, and we stayed over for an additional hour, and it was a 2-hour session. And it was amazing because I got 2 takeaways. It helped me to understand that we are not the only ones dealing with some of the questions that we struggle with. And what I thought that I was seeing on national media is real. I needed that kind of understanding and that kind of confirmation. And then the second thing that I walked away with was that I was so thankful to God that I'm here in Hillsboro and we're doing what we're doing, because we are spot on in where we need to go and where we're headed. There were so many people that I had a conversation with about something that they do or they didn't do and they wish they did. And then I could say, yes, we do that. And there were many, many examples. And for a new person on the board, that was a phenomenal feeling. It was a phenomenal learning experience. And I hope that everybody goes the next time. next year, but it was invaluable to me as a new board member. I got a chance to meet some of the additional Oregon board members. And it was interesting because I was in sessions and because I don't know them, we were in the same session. And when we would ask a question, that's how we identified with each other. So it was very nice. I also had the opportunity to engage with help me out, Erica, the Black board member.
The Black Council?
Yes, Black Council of School Board Members. And that is a group. It's huge. It's, believe it or not, it's a much bigger group than I thought it was. So I was happy to make connection with them as well. It's important for obvious and not so obvious reasons. But I think the next time I'll know that I want to make sure that I join that group and so that I get to be involved with them, not just at that meeting, but throughout the year as well. And so I'll be looking to get involved with them. But it was just a wonderful experience. Very glad I went, absolutely no regrets. And I gotta tell you, the drum session was incredible. I know that sounds strange, but there's this thing that they do, it's called a drum circle. And I guess everybody knew about it, and Mark mentioned it to me, and I thought Mark was actually office rocker, but because he was my leader and my mentor in this, I thought, okay, I'll go with him. And it was so incredibly cathartic and just, it was amazing. There was this guy and he was totally into it, and we were in this big circle and we were beating on drums, I kid you not. But it was so therapeutic, I cannot describe to you how therapeutic it was. So anyway, the drum circle is apparently a very, very important and popular event that goes with the NSBA meeting and National School Board meeting. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you very much for allowing me to share just a little bit of what was an incredible experience. So.
In 2018, I wrote Jackie into joining in the drum circle, and she did like it.
If you guys ever want to go to Eugene, I can take you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got an uncle that's a professional hugger.
Oh, all right.
There's that.
So yes, I last attended in 2018. You want to roll my? So I have some visual aids. The sound on the first video is common grain, so you don't need to play it if it's at all possible. So I'm gonna tie my references back to when I think I showed a video similar to this. You can play it. So when I came back in 2018, one of the things that sort of struck me was that how the digital revolution is sort of changing everybody's job, and we think there are jobs that, well, that probably wouldn't be done by a machine, but this is the bricklaying robot that I showed before. And so, I mean, the changes in technology are going to impact everyone's life, everyone's career, the world of work. This robot doesn't get tired, this robot doesn't need a day off and sick, but it'll have technicians to run it, it'll have manufacturing to make it, it'll have software engineers to program it. You can stop it. And so, my most impactful day at SBA was at the Jacobs Institute for Innovation, which was an off-campus thing. I think of this sort of combines with all the other presentations we had today, of preparing our students to be happy, productive members of the world after they graduate, and figuring out what they like to do, saying of love what you do and you'll never work a day in your life. I mean, I think that's pretty true. And so it was interesting watching board members use an Oculus for the first time. It was interesting to try to watch them wrap their heads around the concepts of cryptocurrency. But the thing that resonated most with me was this system that Sheehan had mentioned. I've sort of talked to some of you about this already a little bit. This system in place that the chief innovation officer of another district used to help pair students with their, figure out what their interests might be and then figure out how jobs might coincide with that. It's called RIA-SEC. It's sort of like, those Myers-Briggs tests or other personality tests help figure out your tendencies, where each letter stands for something. And we probably all have a little bit of each one of them in there, but so like some people do the Lego block thing, some people have their letter codes, whatever. So I know we probably have a system for this in HSD, but I can tell you this was like so unbelievably transformative for the 30 or so board members that were in the room that I just wanted to share that. So can you play the second clip? And this one, if you can turn the audio up, that'd be great. So this is, we didn't watch this clip in the thing, but this is a great way to sort of impart what part of the concept is.
People who identify with the realistic theme see themselves as practical, mechanical, and active. They enjoy hands-on activities, which may include working with animals, tools, or machines. In their spare time, they may enjoy activities including mechanics, gardening, hunting or fishing, carpentry, making jewelry, playing sports, driving vehicles, skydiving, or landscaping. You can often find people that align with the realistic theme in outdoor settings, in national parks, athletic facilities, farms with greenhouses, or in the military. Some of the greatest skills they possess include building and repairing, using tools and equipment, concrete problem solving, growing plants, and anything involving manual dexterity, public safety, and engineering and technology. They tend to value things you can see, touch, and use in their life, and often want their work to be hands-on, physical, and fairly active.
Okay, should pause it right there. So as part of the exercise, we were all paired with somebody, and the person who sat next to me just happened to be another person who had worked in software. And so one of our jobs was to go around the room and look at, so there's sort of this poster for each one of the letters. And I get to this poster and I go, oh, this is like how you take all the fun stuff and turn it into a job. This is amazing, right? And his immediate reaction was, are you kidding me? All of this looks dangerous. So two people with fairly similar, work outside of school board looked at the exact same thing. And so every kid is going to touch a different nerve on each one of these and figure out what speaks to them a little more. And then can you show the first slide? So then, then it basically every category has this, sort of list of if you're R forward or whatever, these are some job categories that might apply to you. There you go. So like these are some job categories that might apply to somebody who's our person. You can sort of see some people are E, then RC. There's nothing's concrete and it changes over the course of your life, I'm sure. But and can you go to the next one too? Right, and so also potential college majors if you're thinking about going to college or whatever. So, and one of the other slides he had there, which I couldn't find online, was potential job salaries that go along with these careers. So it was, I'm not education expert. I shouldn't be developing curriculum, but I can say that, like I said, the 30 board members in the room, we were blown away by how each one of these letters sort of spoke to us. I haven't done it yet, but I guess what my letters would probably be, but I'm not 100% sure. Because I would love to go through it. And one of the interesting things is that the Chief Innovation Officer mentions that if it's something you commit to, it becomes sort of ingrained in your, in sort of the way the kids view the world a little bit. So he happened to be stopping by a class where they were talking about Charlotte's Web, and the students were going, oh, you can totally see how the characters are using their enterprise skill to advocate on Charlotte's behalf. So it's like, it sort of becomes sort of part of how they view the world. So, our kindergartners won't enter the workforce for 12 years at the earliest, maybe 16 if they go to college. The iPhone itself is 15 years old. So, for us to predict what their world is going to be like is hard. And sometimes it's hard for us to remember. I've said this before, this is the worst technology your kid will ever use, right? This is the absolute worst it's ever going to get for them. So we have far fewer saddle makers than we had 100 years ago, but I don't think anybody regrets that we don't think that that's a problem, right? 20 years ago, there was no such thing as a social media marketing expert. So hopefully we find ways to connect our kids with their interests so they can love what they do, so they never work a day again. That's what I was saying. Try to stick to my notes so I didn't ramble too much. All right. And yes, thank you for the opportunity to go. It was awesome. And yes, the drum circle is pretty good. It was a lot bigger in 2018. Yeah, because like less COVID, less people in masks, more people comfortable gathering or whatever. All right. Student reps, I saw Michelle earlier. Do we just have Seth? Hi, Seth, do you have anything you would like to add this evening?
Not particularly, but thank you for the opportunity. I think that I've just had a little bit of a chicken with my head cut off kind of week. So my apologies for being here late, but I was at tech rehearsal. Continue to support your local arts and sports teams as we go into this last bit of the year and etc. Thank you to everybody who presented tonight as well.
Mike?
I think, no, I'm good this evening.
To go back and forth. She has left. Okay, so Moni, do you have anything you want to add this evening?
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy?
I'm good.
Computer's gone, right? Or her computer's still here. She went on the phone.
I think so.
Yeah.
Or something.
Okay. Yeah, very difficult meeting. Thank you all
Wait,
for.
can I change my mind?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sorry. Do you want to say anything first?
Nope.
Speaking of the year, next meeting is the last meeting, and so usually we celebrate that board member when they leave at the last meeting, so just people here to do that with your words and actions.
Probably some tears downstairs if I had to guess. Mostly for me. Thank you everybody for participating in the discussions this evening. Thank you everybody presented. See you back here in 2 weeks. We are adjourned. Oh, do you have something you want to add?
Yeah.
All right.